for their names. I have Brooks O'Neill, Nick Simmons, Robert Powers. So I have. Prior to the introductions, or in the alternative, I can do it after the introduction. Which works better for you?
Do the introduction.
Alrighty then. I'm going to do the introduction. Can people hear me better? My name is Carolyn Van Tine, and I am the moderator. To my left is the town clerk, Sean Dooley. Next to him is the assistant town clerk, Carol Green. At the next table, we have the Board of Selectmen. First, we have Mr. Scott Busby. Next to him is the new chair, Robert Garrity. And beyond him is Mr. Jim Lehan, who I understand is now the treasurer. Clerk, it was someone. Beyond him is town council, Joyce Franklin, and of course, the town administrator, Jack Hathaway. Down at this table below is the advisory board. That board is chaired by Pat Sneed, who at this time I always ask to introduce the advisory board.
Directly opposite to me is our contest, Harley Sterling, Lisa Pearl, Rick Stillman, Dave Benton, Mark Waldman, Al Butters. One of our two administrators is Susan Jacobson, and the other one, Mary Harrington, who is, it's working. Anyway, she must be elsewhere. But in any event, we have not doubled our staff, we simply have a shared administration. Here she comes. The other half.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sneed. Prior to outlining the rules, as I do every time for town meeting, I would again address Mr. Hathaway, who I know has something important to impart to the meeting.
This will be a little shorter than expected, which I'm sure is good news, but we just want to recognize three individuals that work for the town, two police officers and one dispatcher. I'll start with the two police officers, Officer Glenn Eichel and Officer Nate Fletcher, both longtime officers with the department and great individuals, but they are part of the Metro LEC team. The Metro LEC team is affectionately referred to, I guess, as the SWAT team. And it's an organization with many communities, and we are very privileged to have Chief Rick Stillman on our advisory committee, who is actually the Walpole Police Chief, although many of you probably don't know that. He's a financial wizard and a police chief, so we appreciate all of his good work. Chief Stillman is the president of Metro LEC, and the Boston bombings, obviously you all know what happened there. Metro LEC was called up. Officer Eichel went, I think it was 4 days, and was called back actually from vacation. He was down at Cape with his family. Got the call, immediately came back. Kids were not happy, but Glenn spent the week in full tactical gear, 12-hour days, Watertown, Boston, going through houses looking for the individuals that they ended up catching. Nate is a detective for the department, does that work with the Metro LEC too. Spent similar time working, behind the scenes, trying to find the suspects that Boston police and the other law enforcement agencies were looking for. And so we actually had intended to have Glenn and Nate here tonight. They were called out for another Metro LEC event. We'll hope to have them in front of the town at some time in the near future, a selectmen's meeting or other big event where we can show our appreciation to them. But The Metro LEC does a tremendous amount of work for the town, and we as a participant do a tremendous amount of work for other towns. It gathers resources that otherwise the towns would not be able to perform, and we're able to come up with much better results than we would be if we were all working independently. And it's an outstanding example of how regionalization works, and so I'd just like to thank the two officers involved, Officer Eichel and Officer Fletcher, and the service that they provided to all of us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hathaway. Is there something else?
Oh, I had one other.
Oh, yay.
Unfortunately, also not available to be with tonight, but Dispatcher Joe Castellano. Joe is our most senior dispatcher, and I guess I would tell anybody that doesn't think that dispatchers are part of the public safety community to listen to one of Joe's 911 calls. I guess I have a hard, excuse me, I have a hard time with this one because Joe was on a call that involved a young lady, and his work was just outstanding. And as a father, you know, things go through your mind. But these results were successful, and the young lady is safe. So I'll read some excerpts from Sergeant Tim Hines, police sergeant who oversees the dispatchers. On April 30th, 2013, Joe Castellano will be recognized and will receive the State 911 Award for outstanding performance and duties during a critical incident. The incident occurred last September on Cleveland Street. Two suspects forced entry into a house with a 16-year-old female victim home alone. Joe was able to keep the victim safe while obtaining critical information to direct responding officers. Joe's actions were pivotal in the arrest and later conviction of the suspects. The suspects were also linked to a theft ring responsible for numerous house breaks in southeastern Massachusetts. I listened to the 911 recordings, as I told you, and was struck by the following. Joe's ability to reassure the young woman and help her remain calm during a terrifying ordeal. Joe's ability to handle multiple inputs, including answering questions for the young woman and dispatching and then directing officers to the scene, including Norfolk police officers, retail officers, and surrounding communities as we sought mutual aid. Joe directed the young lady to the basement, keeping her on the phone until the suspects were apprehended and the officers were able to assist the young lady on the scene. The woman's safe today, partially because of Joe's great work. And unfortunately, Joe couldn't be here with us today, but he deserves our thanks as well. He wants me to repeat it, you didn't hear that.
Good one. All right. Next item for business is just going to be me outlining the rules to you very briefly. I'm sure you all know them, or most of you know them, and are probably sick and tired of hearing me tell you them. That's just going to have to be too bad. First rule, as you all know, is that there are down and on the floor 3 microphones. There is a yes microphone, there is a no microphone, and then there is a middle microphone. And as the yes microphone might suggest, if you are in favor of, is this yes? That's yes.
Yes.
I can't see them. Green starboard means go. Okay, so the green went over here, so that's yes. No is over there. Whatever. We just need everybody who's in favor of something to be on one side and everyone who's against something to be on the other. The theory behind this, and I know my deputy moderator, who I've yet to introduce, Jake Kellerman, and I go back and forth on this, is that if you see that there are 37 people at the yes microphone and you are opposed, perhaps that'll motivate you to get up out of your seat and speak. Alternatively, if you see there are 37 people opposed, perhaps you will remain seated if you are opposed. So it has several advantages. So go to the microphone for which you want to speak. If you are in favor of the motion, go to the yes. If you are opposed to the motion, go to the no microphone. You have, pursuant to bylaw and my rules, 2 times at the microphone for each motion. What does that mean? That means the first time you come up to the microphone, you may come up for 5 minutes to speak. The second time, you may come up for an additional 3 minutes to speak. If there is a substitute motion within the motion, that gives you an additional 8 minutes to speak. So every time there's a motion, you have 2 times at the microphone. If you have questions, I do recommend that you bundle those questions so you don't waste your 3 minutes or 5 minutes on one question and then think of another question. And if you're bundling your questions, I'll make notes of what those questions are, and we'll make sure once several questions have been asked that the appropriate authority gets up and answers those questions. When somebody is answering questions, they are not discounted for time. So the only time is when you're speaking at the microphone. The center microphone is for questions. So if it's not a yes and it's not a no, if you simply have questions, you go to the center microphone. In addition, the center microphone is for motion. And let me speak a little bit about motion. If you have a motion to amend an article as it's written in the warrant, excuse me, or as it's being amended by the advisory board, that motion needs to be in writing. Often that won't have occurred to you prior to arriving here tonight, and that's not a problem. Come to the center microphone, make your motion. Hopefully for your sake, somebody seconds that motion. Then discussion can begin, but before you leave, you need to write out your motion so that the clerk can record it. And down in front of me, in a red file folder, are blank motion to amend forms so that you can take care of that. Let's see what I missed. I'd like you to direct all of your comments to me. I think that typically, compared to other towns, we have a very civil town meeting. Very rarely does it devolve, but I think one of the ways that we avoid devolution is by remembering that the remarks should be directed to the moderator. And so that we don't end up with sort of conversations or back and forth or finger pointing or someone saying, Steve, that's ridiculous. We don't want that. Instead, you want to just direct your commentary to me that you are opposed or in favor of a particular article. I'm sure about halfway through I'll remember the 5 or 6 things I should have told you that I didn't. And for that I apologize. But that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Drooling.
Madam Moderator, I move to waive the reading of the warrant and the return of the warrant.
All those in favor? Opposed? Off to the advisory board. Article 2.
Madam Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 2.
Second.
This is a standard article that appears at all town meetings. That if there were any bills incurred prior to July 1st, 2012, any town meeting could approve the payment of those bills that are not this time.
Is there any discussion on moving to indefinitely postpone Article 2? Seeing nobody at a microphone, all in favor of indefinite postponement of Article number 2, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Article 3.
This is an annual transfer article. We'll put copies of it. Madam Moderator, I move to transfer from the employee benefits budget $239,000, from finance salaries $13,650, from the planning board $5,990, from library salaries $4,000, from building and liability insurance $10,000, and from free cash $60,103.11, for a total transfer from amount $332,743.11, and that those monies be transferred to the Community Development Grant Line $16,890, the Norfolk County Agricultural School $8,000, Selectmen's salaries $15,841, Building Department salaries $2,000, the Snow and Ice budget $283,506.11, Facilities salaries, $5,000, Council on Aging budget, $516, and the land use salaries, $990, for total transfer to $332,743.11. And further, to intertransfer within accounts, I move to transfer from fire fines $800 to fire training $800, and from snow and ice revolving $12,181.86 to the snow and ice budget $12,181.86. Apologize for all of those numbers, but sort of the biggest item that we're doing is a town meeting that we always do at our annual town meeting is to cover primarily to cover our snow and ice deficit from the preceding winter. We always carry a very small, relatively small budget in snow and ice. We always run over it. We always come to town meeting looking for other sources to fund the snow and ice deficit. That deficit this year is $283,506.11. That is primarily going to be coming out of a budget for employee benefits. Primarily that's made up of health insurance. The town did very well in its health insurance budget in this current fiscal year. And it's been determined that there is $239,000 available to apply to the snow and ice budget. And if you're wondering, we have looked at this reduced health insurance budget in relation to the article that will be coming up the town's budget for next year. And we do have a much smaller increase in the employee benefits budget because we're basing it on these savings that we incurred this year. So that's a positive for us 2 years in a row. Just real quickly, some of the other items they mentioned. We're putting some money into selectmen's salary. That is, we have funded a position for an HR person to assist Scott Hathaway, and we had enough funds available this year to grant that position 30 hours as opposed to 20 hours. Believe me, there's every bit that much work to be done. The community development grant is something different. We have to fund that. It's a grant that was approved. Primarily, it's a grant that the state is going to give us for 40R or downtown development. The problem we have is even though the state's approved the grant, we're not sure when we're going to get the check, and we are incurring expenses. So we need to have some money in that account to pay the bills before we close out the fiscal year. We're going to be getting it from the state, which will put that money back, but this is an accounting entry. We had to have money in the account when we paid the bill. So the rest of them are all fairly small. And again, we are also using a good bit of our free cash, $60,103.11. But that is on an annual basis. That's always our primary source of funding for our snow and ice deficit.
Any questions or comments relative to Article 3 as presented? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The majority was required if there was nothing to be moved to stabilization. Article 4.
Madam Moderator, I move to amend the Town of Norfolk Board of Selectmen Human Resource Policy Schedule B compensation schedule by applying a general increase of 1.5% to all steps on the compensation schedule effective July 1, 2013. This again is an annual budget activity we do. We still have some positions in town that are non-unionized, not collectively bargained. Those positions, primarily clerical on the town side, operate off a fixed schedule in our human resources policy book. So each of the positions on that schedule are being increased at 1.5%. Each of the steps within that position. And this money has been built into the budget that's going to be presented to you in that budget.
Any questions or comments relative to Article 4? Mr. Weldon, actually, if you could come back. Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 4 as written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Majority carries. Mr. Speed.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I want you all to know that you will see a historic occasion tonight, and that is the last time that you will see Mark Walton leading the transport school. Mark and his wife have received that most exalted of parental statuses, that is the empty nesters, and they have chosen to be part of the environment of Norfolk, and they'll move without cost. This is Mark's last meeting as a member of the advisory committee, which, no big deal. Advisory committee meetings members come and go. But Mark's a little unusual. He's been on the advisory committee for 22 years. That may or may not be unprecedented, but it's certainly unprecedented in the history of anybody that whose memory goes back into as far back as memory goes. We thought this was deserving of a little more than the usual here today, gone tomorrow advisory committee member kind of thing. So in recognition of his long and meritorious service as a member of the advisory committee, we just had a secret ballot where we voted him an honorary lifetime member.
Not already? It sure feels like that way.
You're a lifetime. And in recognition of that, we have this gavel. It'll be a little hard to detach and to thank people for that, but it is a gavel. The plaque says, honorary lifetime member with gratitude from the town of Norfolk for 22 years of outstanding service, Norfolk Advisory Committee, 1991-2013.
An honor to do this. Obviously, I'm really going to miss this. But it's been great seeing the town change over these years. And the board is, I've always served on great boards with a lot of really great people and had great, relationships with yourself. This is really what I'm going to miss most about the introduction. So again, thank you very much. It's been a real honor on my part.
Article 5.
Madam Moderator, I move for the compensation of the elected position of town clerk at $62,920 as provided for by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2013, and to raise and appropriate $32,901,088, to transfer $11,000 from cemetery duties reserved for appropriations, to transfer $350,000 from free cash, to transfer $97,916 from the stabilization fund, for a total of $33,350,004.
Here I am back again to tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do. With respect to the budget, we did have an organizational meeting where people came and we established how much time folks would be speaking on the budget. The Board of Selectmen, for an example, have 20 minutes to speak on the budget, and then we'll also be hearing from the school committees and others. After there's been the presentations made relative to the budget in totem, what we're going to do is the same thing that we did last year, which is employ the system called the hold system. And in that system, I will go through and read each of the line item categories in pause. And if folks have a question about a category, or they want to object to a category, or find out more information about a category, I urge them to shout out hold. If I hear hold, I will circle that one and move on, and then we will vote the slate that nobody was interested in talking about. And then we'll go back and address each of the holds in turn as they appear on the budget. So that being said, I'll turn it over to the Board of Selectmen for their presentation relative to the budget. Oh, you have some stuff you want to say too?
Well, I just wanted to make a recommendation.
Oh, let's hear it.
The advisory committee recommends approval of this budget commentary that we wrote in our mail, which you can see, but I will not summarize that since there's a separate presentation.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I promise, close to 20 minutes, so. I'm much better doing numbers than I am talking about people that work for us. So, I'll go through some revenues and expenses and then talk about the highlights. Obviously, when we get to the whole part of the budget, that'll give you your opportunity to ask questions. The budget really starts in September. The department heads start looking at the year that it just closed. They put together their requests through around Christmas time, and in January they start coming to me, and we work on trying to figure out what is affordable versus what is required. And then we start meeting with the selectmen, and then as we get buy-in from the selectmen, we start working with the advisory committee, and then we start playing the whole dance, between the municipal departments, the school, and local and the regional school districts. It's quite an entertaining time. I'll show you fiscal 2013 revenues, not much different than fiscal 2014. Really the same proportions. The big piece of the pie is obviously tax revenue. This is the tax revenue without the excluded debt. The excluded debt being for the King Philip Junior High and High School, the Freeman Kennedy School, and then some existing debt on the Norfolk Public Library. So this year we'll have $23.2 million of tax revenue coming in on real estate. $2.9 million is the local receipts. That's excise taxes, building permits, library fines, town clerk fees, anything else that you might transact in town hall. $3.9 million in state aid, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's a large part of that is our Chapter 78, which is for educational purposes, with only about $800,000 of that being for general government, the unrestricted aid, which was formerly known as lottery funds, but now unrestricted aid. That $458,000 I'll talk about at the end of the presentation a little bit, but that's other funds, and that's really pulling money out of some of our cash accounts, if you will, whether it's our free cash, our stabilization fund, our cemetery receipts, $11,000 on the cemetery, $350,000 of free cash, and almost $98,000 on our stabilization fund. That's one of my items that's a little bit of a red flag, but there is some, there's also some good news in the budget picture as well. Here's the state aid picture. You've seen this slide before. Going all the way back to 2001, we had just under $3 million. We've had some better years in 2008, and this year we're projected to have $3.937 million. The red there is the years that we got prison mitigation funds. So again, we had some good years in 07, 08, and 09, and one little bit of, that's $80,000 right there in 2012. For comparison, in 2008 we had $4.8 million. We've lost $1 million per year in state aid since 08. And going all the way back to 2001, we actually received more money in 2001 than we do today. So that's, Norfolk over the past 13 years, we obviously are surviving. We're funding our schools, we're funding our public safety, we're funding the things that we need to fund, but our partnership with the state is a frustrating partnership, and we wish this was a different picture. So just looking at the past 6 years, starting in 09, if we been level funded, we would have $4.5 million more today than we would if they hadn't been cutting our local aid. So the fiscal 2013 budget, this is the budget that is in this June 30th. 68% of our budget is in education, 16% in public safety, 7% in general government, and then DPW is 5%, culture and recreation, that's where you'll find the recreation department, and library, human services, oh, I'm sorry, I got my college stuff. Employee benefits is there in the 3%. In 2014, the percentages work out the same, so we're not making any drastic changes. Slight, you can see slight. Yep. What are the highlights I'll talk about what I call the municipal budget. Obviously, the superintendent will talk about the specific parts of the school budget in a few minutes. On the municipal side, I'm requesting to add the last 10 hours of my human resources assistant, a director, getting him up to a full-time position. With five unions, 120 municipal employees, and then you add in the school employees, which we have some, obviously we have some benefit work with. There's quite a bit of work, but in addition to that, we built his job description so that he's helping with negotiate all of our benefits. He's helping negotiate our building and liability insurance. He's picking up a lot of tasks that eventually I would, if Norfolk continues to grow, it would be something that an assistant town administrator would fulfill. You'll see that we've reduced the facilities cost by $155,000. We're receiving credits from NSTAR for the solar field that's on the landfill. We think that number is going to grow even more, but at this time, working with the utilities probably almost as hard as working with the state. We're still negotiating how those credits are being applied. We're looking for a check for about close to $2,000 now, so they're in arrears getting back to us for credit this year. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the transfers was we used $60,000 in free cash. We actually think there's some good news at the end of this year. We'll have a good chunk of money, at least $60,000 left in the utilities budget from those energy credits, because we fully funded the energy budget this year, and we'll see some of those credits come back this year, and then that money will roll into free cash for us next year. We've added a planner to the planning and development office for 6 months. So that person will start in January. It's a full-time position. We look at that. There's still some work to do to find what that role will be completely, but we're looking, helping us develop our zoning bylaws, helping us with zoning enforcement, our local zoning enforcement, helping just oversee the land use administrative staff, working with the DPW in somewhat of an engineering role. There's lots of things that we do by committee, we do by lots of different employees making ends meet, but having a planner, I think, will really professionalize that whole position and help us, hopefully, as Mr. Walton said, we'll come back and redo our zoning year, the same zoning this month that we did 6 months ago. We're adding 1 police officer. We're still at a staffing level of back in the 1980s, but we've seen tremendous growth in our population during that time. We're looking to add an 18th officer, so we have a chief, a lieutenant, sergeants, and officers. And we're looking, as we continue to see, not only during the bad economy, but we continue to see challenges with breaking and entry. I know many of you heard that incident a couple of weeks ago, and Officer Eichel and Officer Fletcher, I should have commented on their work there too, because Officer Eichel was out with the dog chasing through the woods behind the prison over to Pond Street for 3 or 4 straight hours, and Detective Fletcher was working behind the scenes, which really meant he was down on Eden Street working his detective skills. assistant foreman. As you remember, a couple of years ago, we added the superintendent positions. We think we've lost one of our superintendents. We think with some restructuring, we're going to promote one of our foremen, and then have, and rather than replacing him, fill in the two assistant foremen, and it'll give us some extra work, some extra help, I should say, in both the highway department and the grounds department. Highway department, I probably don't need to talk too much about why they need extra help. We can use all the help we can on the roads. The grounds department is, for those of you with kids, probably see the condition of the fields. I think we do a great job, we can still do even better. And we're trying to take back some of the contract work that we do and have our own employees do it. And we've added $25,000 to snow and ice. I was going away presents to Mr. Waldman. We fund our snow and ice budget at $125,000. All of you that come to the May meetings know that we end up transferring anywhere between 100 to some years close to $340,000 we have to transfer into that budget. We'd like to, over the next few years, try to add to that, maybe $25,000 per year, and get it up to a number where we're looking at like the 10-year average and go from there. Some of my commentary, this will drive us like crazy, but I think my phone they don't. Budget conditions are tight. You know, a good but bad practice of budgeting is to know where your pockets, your cushions are, so at the end of the year you can steal that money and fix the problems that you have. Those cushions are, I've talked about this for years, but those cushions are going and going, and I really think they're almost gone. Health insurance, as we talked, Roger will talk about, you know, we always try and be conservative there and account for a reasonable increase in the premium, but also we have seen transition of employees as their spouses lose benefits. We've seen employees come onto our plans. Well, we've got a little bit of, you know, because we've been conservative over the last few years, we've had a little bit of cushion in there that we've been able to transfer to the snow and ice or whatever the other problems that town meeting has found at the end of the year. I'm telling you, those cushions are gone, so that's one of my concerns. Local aid, we don't know what the final local aid number is this year. We're relatively early in the budget season compared to other towns in the neighborhood. But we think we have a pretty good idea. We're going with the House Ways and Means budget. The full House budget. So hopefully that number will stay. Chapter 90, that's our money that we receive as a grant directly for road improvement. This past year we got $392,000. That's not money that we have in the budget, that's money that is received, and town meeting votes an article that allows the selectmen to budget that money and fix roads as the year goes on. Right now, the way it stands is that number's been increased by 50%, so we're up over the $500,000 number, but that hasn't been signed by the government. And we'll see how that state budget falls together. Public safety building, I can tell you there's certainly Chief Stone and Chief Bushnell can stand up tonight and talk to you about the public safety building, but we won't. We'll save that what we hope will be a fall conversation. But we really need to have look at the public safety building. It's got a lot of serious concerns. If you haven't taken a tour of the building, I encourage you to do so. I can't say that every Saturday if you walk down there, there'll be somebody available to see you, but the open house for the fire department is, comes up in October, I think. That's a great time to go down and see the building. It looks a lot better from the outside than it is from the inside, and we need to address that. So, budget concerns, as I talked about in the revenues, we've used more cash than I would feel comfortable using. $350,000 from our free cash. We still have $35,000 left in our free cash. And as I said, our utility budget, we expect to dump some more money into our free cash for next year. And certainly next year we've created a structural budget problem. So we need to fix that $350,000 the first thing next year. We'll have to find recurring revenue for that. The N-Star credits, as I talked about, that's, you know, we're getting solar. We're now just in this past month, seeing the credits show up on our bill. And as I said, they owe us close to $200,000. So that confident we will get we have contracts in place, we have legislation on our side, and we'll get the number. But dealing with utility, as I said, is not really fun. As I said, there is good news too. Budget hope, our new growth. It's early in the season for us to really tell you what new growth is going to be this year, but you know, the work of the planning board and the work of our other land use boards and obviously the work of our local developers gives us some hope that you know, a medical building down on Route 115, continuing work in gyre development, the household developments, whether that are the home building that is going on, provides us hope that there will be some additional new growth that will add to our tax base in the upcoming years. So that is certainly something to look forward to, and hopefully our economy will stay strong. Very quickly, our fall preview, just for capital. You know, of course, we're always thankful when the town finds the ability to fund capital items, and by capital, over the past few years, we've mainly focused on vehicles because we haven't had the funds to do anything else. And capital is a huge asset for us. But just a couple of notes. 1 year ago, the police department had 7 of 13 cars over 100,000 miles. We replaced 3 of those. Today, we have 6 of the 13 vehicles of over 100,000, and they're not just barely. They're 119, 122, etc. You can see right up to 144,000. DPW vehicles. During my tenure, I don't, you know, other than we bought a few F1 or F250 pickups, we have not addressed the need to replace the big vehicles that are out doing the plowing. You know, we've got some vehicles from the 1980s that are out doing the plowing, so we need to address that in the next, if not in the fall, in the next few years. Municipal vehicles, there aren't any of the assessors. For last year, hasn't been delivered yet, but we are placing it with a new Ford Focus. So thank you for doing that. Driving around that old white vehicle, John's here. I'm sure he can tell you that he's looking forward to the day when the Ford Focus and has his foot when it's going up to the floor. Animal control, that's something we need to address in the fall. She's driving around on a Crown Vic. We'd certainly like to get her into a more appropriate vehicle. The building department, the red Ford Bronco, I think that was. I'm sure we'll stop making those, but we had one of the last ones. We'll replace that with an old police vehicle with 140. They don't put a lot of mileage on it. They're not out driving at high speed, so it's other than the gas mileage that some people cringe at. It's a vehicle that'll get them through until we can replace that with a more practical vehicle. And then the town hall purpose car, we call it a Ford Taurus that we'll be receiving from the police department when they roll out their second or third car. Something that the treasurers, rather than having the treasurer use her own car to go to the bank, some building, the data collector doing inspections of houses in her own vehicle and paying mileage. Now we've got Ford Taurus to do that. That's my hopefully shorter than 20 minutes.
Thank you. In addition to Mr. Hathaway speaking on behalf of the Board of Selectmen in his role as town administrator, at the organizational meeting were representatives from the Norfolk School Committee. And it was agreed that Norfolk School Committee would speak for 10 minutes on their area of the budget. And I would invite our, whoever is going to speak, to the microphone and introduce them.
I'm Amy Lardy. I'm here to speak to the LMC budget and the superintendent.
Can everyone hear her? Is the middle microphone? I'm not sure if the middle mic is working. I can't hear it.
You can't hear me?
Oh, now I can.
All right. Let's see how it goes. Just to start, I wanted to share the district mission. So, the Norfolk Public Schools offer a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community relationships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. The 2014 budget that we're recommending posting tonight, we do feel is fiscally conservative. The funding that's being provided will allow the district to maintain what we call level service, so to open doors with the existing staff that we have going forward. And to begin to make some very modest efforts towards restoring funding in areas of critical need. Budget decisions that we made as a committee were guided by the mission and with the central purpose of promoting high levels of academic achievement for all students. In order for the schools to open just as they are, so to have a level service budget, on average, it takes about 3 to 5% increase, and that allows us to maintain programs, to meet contractual obligations for salary increases, second lane changes, things like that. So on average, it takes the school system about 3 to 5% annual budget increases just to maintain services. I wanted to share with you the budget history because since 2008, the elementary budget has received a 1.13 increase in 08, 1.99% in 09, negative cuts actually in 2010 and 11, zero increase in 2012. Last year, the schools received a 1.5% budget increase, and in addition to the town did absorb some of our energy costs, so it netted at about 3%. But the budget history, just if you keep in mind that it does take us about 3 to 5% to open, we've been in a pattern where we have been reducing staff, eliminating programs, and cutting pretty consistently over the last 6 years. In addition to the budget cuts that we've faced, I think it's important to take a look at the federal picture because we do receive some of the funding for our school system through federal and state grants. So this just gives you a picture that in addition to the cuts that we've had locally, the amount of funding we receive from federal and state grants has decreased significantly. So in 2009, we were getting $631,550 in federal funds. Last year, it was $279,000. In state aid, it's also reduced by about 50% over the last few years. The impact of the declining revenues, as I mentioned earlier, we have eliminated many classroom teaching positions. We've had to eliminate instructional support staff. The foreign language program at the elementary schools has been cut. We've eliminated health education classes. We've had to reduce library staffing. We eliminated last year a technology integration specialist at the Freeman Kennedy. We've had reductions in professional development funding for the teachers. Many of the materials and supplies lines were funded at zero. Some new curriculum materials have not been supported. And we had to also add fees for transportation and vans just to maintain services and operate. The 2014 budget request reflects a 3.6% increase for the schools, a total of $9,901,245. This budget request actually restored the district to the level of investment we had back in 2009. The recommended budget, we did look first from the savings side. We do anticipate 2 teacher retirements, which will be a budget savings of about $53,000. We will be eliminating 1 classroom position at the Freeman Kennedy next year due to a decline in enrollment, and that's about $55,000. We are recommending eliminating the 2 speech and language assistant positions at the HOT school for a budget saving of about $48,000. We anticipate a reduction in our special education costs of about $84,000 and fixed charges of about $45,000. So we're anticipating about $246,636 in reductions. Budget additions to meet contractual raises and salary increases next year for our professional staff is $252,486, and for anticipating cost of living increases for our paraprofessional staff, that's about $65,000. We would like to add back $15,000 for professional development. We have many new mandates from the Department of Education for annual required training that we need to provide, and we need to support and fund that. We'd also like for our instructional aides to be part of that professional development. Currently, they are not paid to come in on any staff development days, so we'd like to add 2 days to each of their contracts. We're recommending, as I mentioned before, we're recommending reducing 2 speech and language assistant positions. We need to replace that with a certified speech and language pathologist at the HOT who is licensed to conduct testing, evaluations for students, present at team meetings, and provide service. We need to add, to meet the needs of the population coming in at HOT, we need to add an instructional support position. We have a math specialist that provides support to students at the HOD this year. 0.2 of that position is funded by the Title I grant, which we are not anticipating receiving next year. So we put in to the budget request 0.2 math specialists. That's to maintain staffing because we're anticipating we may not be eligible for that funding next year. We are recommending adding back technology specialist 0.6 position to the Kennedy. That would be to somebody that we have all these fabulous resources. We have computers, we have iPads. That person will be responsible for providing professional development to staff, researching and looking at new technologies that are available, providing guidance on students that need assistive technology, as well as looking at methods of using technology to support enrichment and challenge for students that are ready for that. We'd also like to increase our school psychologist position had been decreased in the past. We'd like to add 0.1 back to that to allow the psychologists to do some consultation, work with classroom teachers, and provide support service to students. So we need $507,402 for that. Just so you can see, as Jack shared with the town side, the majority of the school's budget is dedicated to salary, almost 75% of that. So we have professional salaries, we have clerical salaries, other salaries. 4% of that is for services. We only have about 5% of the total budget that's for supplies, and that is actually really very tight for us. These are needs that, as I said at the start, we feel this is a very conservative budget request. We recognize that the town has significant challenges this year. So these are things that are not in our budget request, but that we'd like to see down the road. An additional reading specialist for the upper elementary school, Freeman Kennedy. We would like to consider adding back a foreign language program. So we need 1.5 foreign language teachers. We would like to add health education back to the general curriculum. So health teachers, we'd like to restore our library staff. There has been clerical cuts at local school and district level that we are managing with, but it's tight, so down the road we'd like to see that too. We are sharing a tech director position with the town right now, 1.5, but that might be something if both sides continue to grow that we need to continue. And we'd like to see eventually an enrichment coordinator to help us with the enrichment challenge part for the curriculum. So those are things that are not in this request.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Lardy. Not available for the organizational meeting was a representative from King Philip, but it's argued that if Norfolk schools get 10 minutes, so too does King Philip. So Dr. Zalitsky, oh, she's telling me 5. I don't know, that seems like a challenge. I'm actually going to start my watch on that one. Just because. So once she's queued up, we won't start our timer on her until.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Liz Linsky. I'm the superintendent of King Philip Regional, and I would first like to thank you for choosing King Philip Regional to send your children to, and we love your children. And because of that, and because of your support, our enrollment is really, really big, which is a good thing. But I want to talk to you briefly about our budget. I'm sure you've heard a lot of things out there about budget cuts. We started budget again back in October. We meet on that, we take a look, and we have been meeting actually last night. The school committee made a few motions which are reflected in this PowerPoint, so we'll talk about that. And you're also going to get a look at where our cost savings have been placed this year. So just real briefly, we have some wonderful accomplishments. Our students continue to be accepted into Ivy League schools and prestigious colleges. We have a lot of programs, especially in science and math, and we gave out awards last night to students in chemistry at a state level. We are a level 1 school district by the Mass Department of Education, and we are the only level 1 school in the Hockomock League. So for those of you that are sports-minded who play against, we are the only level 1 school that is the highest rating the state will give on a school. We also this year made AP Honor Roll for the first time. We are one of 350 schools in the U.S. and Canada that have received that honor. And we're hoping to do it again next year. Have to keep those grades up. You know, it's like when your children come, we don't want those grades to go down. Up is always good. As you know, we have multiple gold level awards in music, and our athletics are not too shabby either. We've had a few good, we made it to the tournament this year with hockey, so that's good, it's been a while. Okay, we do have some challenges. We want to provide for you the very best education that we can for your child, maximizing our resources, and we do understand the challenges, the fiscal challenges that all three towns that we service are facing. And these are just lingering financial issues that you even have in your own home because of the changes in the job market and such. And so we want to make sure that we recognize that we understand those challenges. We do have some budget stressors. Some of these will be repeats of what Dr. Lardy referred to. State Chapter 78, there's an E on the end of that, it's basically flatlined, as you know. Reduction in state circuit breaker relief. This is funding that districts receive for students who are out-of-district special ed students. It is a percentage of their total cost of education, and that money has been down, it fluctuates. Reduction again in regional transportation aid. For those of you who may not know, the state promised to fund it at 100%, and we're at about 50%. And it's always something that they tend to cut. There's reduction in allocation grants, such as Title I and IDA grants. We do have, again, the increase in enrollment, the increase in special education district tuitions. Tuitions just go up in the district, as well as because we have that larger student population, you're going to see that we have more children going into special ed, just statistically. And again, just a general increase in the operating expenses. As you know, everything tends to go up a little bit. KP is seeking a revised increase, if you come to our budget meetings, to our operating budget, so that it will be an increase of 3.3%. That is an increase to the operating budget that would not make us at a level service budget that is below a level service budget. And the reason for this is the increase to the towns would basically be impossible for them to handle at that. So we, again, we've gone through and we've reduced. A 3.3% increase on our operating budget does not mean a 3.3% increase to your town's assessment. The assessment ends up being a little bit higher because of the Chapter 70 formulas that are applied by the state, just so that you understand that. So in FY13, the approved budget was 25.4. A level service budget for KP, if it was a level service budget, would be 27.5. The dollar difference is about $2 million. We are looking for an FY14 operational budget at a 3.3% increase, which is 26.3. The dollar difference is approximately $841,000, and so the increase to the assessment for percentage will be 8%. So there is a difference between the overall operating budget and what it would be for your assessment. We have made the following reductions. We begin with sort of a level service budget, and then we sort of reduce down from there to get to that 3.3%. We have negotiated healthcare savings. It was long and hard negotiations, but that has officially been signed. I think ink's about maybe a week old on that. Application of some excess and deficiency funds. Like a town who has free cash or stabilization fund, we have an excess and deficiency fund which we carry over. Excess and deficiency funds really should be used for one-time expenses. It's not recurring money. Once it's used, it's gone. We have in the past used, I'm going to decrease in that, just to let you know we did. It's just a matter of students and where they're going. But we did see a nice decrease in that. We are reducing some teacher assistants, reduction of current custodial staff. We are reducing payroll and benefit staff, and application of current circuit breaker funds. Those are the funds that we receive from the state. We're going to make sure that we apply them up first. Often we can have a child that may move in to town from a different town who has significant special needs and has a significant schooling price attached to that. And that's where those funds would help, so we don't come back to you or you and the other towns say, oh, we're short, we need you to vote up your town. So we try to make sure that we have something there to cover, and those instances happen frequently. And special ed is a very lucid issue, so you're sort of that covers these. The town of Norfolk has always been supportive of a high-quality education for all students. We love that you send your kids to us because we love your kids. And we want the very best for your children. And we will continue to improve our programs while seeking to economize. It's really very important. So what was done with last night's meeting and such is we were looking at some other potential cuts, which we readjusted and looked again at the budget. And so at this point, outside programs for students such as sports and music programs at this point at Norfolk's 8% assessment are safe. Again, I just wanted you to know that it takes 2 of the 3 towns to vote up that amount. So this is just the beginning of my process. We have a few more town meetings to go through.
So that was 8 minutes and 44 seconds. Next time. The next portion, as I previously indicated, will be the hold. Once we've gone through anything that there was no hold held on, we'll go that. It's a majority vote. Then we'll address each of the holds. Once all of the holds have been addressed, then we have to go back and actually vote on whether the amount of money should go in, and we'll talk about that later. So let's start with the holds. I hope everyone has a copy of their fiscal 2014 general fund budget in front of them. Is there anybody who does not have that? It's located inside the warrant, and it's got really teeny tiny writing. So I have my cheaters on. So here we go. If I don't hear a hold after a second or two, I'm going to move on. So the first item is the budget for moderator. Next, selectman, town administrator. It doesn't have a page. It's the first key. No, that's not. We're going on the general fund budget. Next page over. Got it? If you have questions regarding where the money's come from, we can address those when we go back to the original at the end. This is just for where the money's go. Then we'll talk about where the money's come from. Everybody's got it? So the first one up, we'll start again, is moderator. The budget is $49. So if anyone wants to talk about that, save me. No? Okay, moving on. Selectman, town administrator. Advisory board. Municipal finance. Board of assessors. Town council. Human resources. Information technology. Tax title foreclosure. Facilities management. Town clerk. Conservation. Conservation. Planning board. Zoning board of appeals. Planning and development. Town reports. Police. Fire and ambulance. Ambulance billing. Building department. Weights and measure. Emergency management. Animal inspector. Animal control. Fire/police committee. Communication. Well, Jesus, throw the whole word out there. I'm guessing. Did anyone want to hold that while I stumbled through it? No? Okay. Education. Start with Norfolk Elementary. Next. Hold. How about King Philip Regional? Norfolk Agricultural School. Tri-County. Public Works is the next heading under Public Works. Does anyone want to hold on DPW administration? Highway. Vehicle maintenance. Grounds municipal. Grounds cemetery. Custodian of veteran graves. Tree warden. Perhaps someone thinks we need more money for the tree warden. No? Shade tree. Someone put a hold on that so they can tell me what in fact that is. Road program. Landfill. Snow and ice. Street light. Town vehicle fuel. Transfer station. Human services. Under the human services, we have Board of Health. Board of Health. Special programs.
Hold.
Council on Aging.
Hold.
Veteran Services. Next heading is Culture and Recreation. Under the Culture and Recreation heading, first up is Library. Next is Recreation. Followed by the Historical Commission. This time they wrote the whole word out for me. Memorial Day. Next, fixed costs.
Hold under employee benefits.
All right. And then finally, is there anyone who wants to speak about the debt service? And as I said, we'll deal with revenues after we deal with what we're spending on. Hold on debt service. All right. So for the limited amount that there was no hold on, all of those in favor of approval of those, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. The majority was required at this juncture. 2/3 later on. Stay tuned. All right. So now we're going to go back. The first one inexplicably was not moderator. It was selectman, town administrator. So folks, if you've got a question or a comment relative to the selectman, town administrator, now's your chance. Please, oh, here's another thing. I told you I was going to forget things. Please state your first and last name and your street address prior to addressing this town.
Ken Melly, Caldwell Side Lane. I took a lot of holes, and they were on all the items that basically had salary expense, except the ones that were no increases or communities increases. There's really one question for all of those holes. I'd like to know what part of the increased salaries are due to new employees and what part is due to increases for existing personnel. So, and I'm happy to take one number for that. It doesn't have to be department by department. You want to give me one at a time, that would fine.
I like one number, but, probably between you and I think Mr. Hathaway is the gentleman who answered the question. Did you understand the question as he asked it? I'll leave you at the mic. I know I usually don't approve of back and forth, but I want to make sure, because you're willing to have them bundled, I like you, so I want to make sure that the question is answered correctly.
If I understand the question, you're looking for what new employees are.
All right, how's that? We were looking for the number of new employees that we have, if I understood.
No, I'm looking for two things. The amount of salary increase due to new employees, and I don't care what the number is, just the amount of salary that increases to the town's general fund budget due to new employees, and the amount of salary increases due to raises.
I want to start backwards because that's the easier question. The raises for our unions and we talked about the non-union personnel earlier tonight in Article 3, I think it was, are in most cases are 4%. There's 5 different unions. In some cases we've done 2 3s and 2 4s. I don't know for the first year or fourth year contract off the top of my head. I can tell you, when you add COLAs and steps together, in the contract, some of the contracts don't have employees, I'm going to have a difficult time giving you a dollar amount because the budgets are all, you can see, scattered among many different line items. But you know, I talked about in my earlier presentation about who the employees were.
Can you give me just a number to the nearest FTE and how many people you're in across the town?
0.5 planner, and then we're increasing, and then a 0.5 in the DPW, and we're going from one foreman, or promoting him, and then splitting that job into two assistant foremen. So we're trying to, costing us a little bit more, we're getting 2 employees instead of 1. Those are the employees we're having.
Okay, so just to summarize, the maximum salary increase is 4%, and it could be lower.
Correct. Yeah.
And you're ready to have 1.5 to 2 people?
Correct. What's up?
We have a clarification coming up.
I just wanted to.
Not yet.
Now working?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify on school, just to make, I'm also on the school committee. The teachers have contracts for next year. It's 3% if they're maxed out at the top step, 2% at the bottom step. So there are some teachers who, during their, in addition to their step, they also get a lane change because they got their PhD. And that changes that a little bit more. So I just wanted to clarify, in those particular circumstances, they're at the top step, they're capped at 3%. If they're at a below step, they're in the 2% raise with the COLA. But if they also have a lane change, they have their master's, they have their PhD, that gives them an increase as well, which might put them over 4%. Sorry about that.
All right. That's good. That, I mean, we want to keep track. Who was putting the holes on? Here's all my holes.
All right, great. So what I'll do, I started to sense a pattern. I'm not going to lie, my eyes started to swivel over and watch this corner of the room after a little bit with the hole. But what I'll do is I'll just go through each, and if it's one that's just you and no one else is interested, then no one will come to the mic and we'll just vote on it. That seems to be the easiest way. Anybody else have a question or comment relative to the selection of the town administrator item? Seeing nobody at the microphone, all those in favor of approval of that portion of the budget, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next was municipal finance. Was there anybody with a question other than what was already addressed for municipal finance? Now, just see you approaching slowly, and so I just want to make sure it's not you. All right. Now, all those in favor of approval of municipal finance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next is town council. Mr. Rosenberg.
David Rosenberg, 123 Market Street. I was just interested in what the town council has been doing, whether there are particular cases underway or whether this is just advising committees and boards when they have questions. What's the town council been up to?
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg.
Well, town council does a great many things for municipality, whether advising on town meeting, preparing for town meeting, obviously, advising really most of the land use boards and the building department on applications, whether they be in the application stage or at the litigation stage. And then, obviously, representing the town in a variety of litigation statuses in the different courts. They also advise us on personnel matters, contractual or benefit type issues before we get into jams, for lack of a better word.
Are there any active cases right now? Cases in litigation?
Yes. I don't like to talk about active cases. You would love to come by and talk to me. I will share what I can share with you in my office, but not. I think this is the appropriate time.
Anybody else relative to town council? Seeing no one at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of line items regarding town council, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, it's not unanimous, but a majority
voucher 3 Fleetwood Drive. The increase is from last year to this year, 24,000 that has been approved. If I heard in your comments, that called for 1/4 or 10 hours a week for the human resources person. Is that correct?
Correct, and Mr. Gary corrected me on the other answer. I left off my .25 on the HR director. So that is 10 hours a week for that position.
So a whole HR person is going to cost us $100,000 a year?
No, a whole HR person is going to cost us $85,000 a year.
I was looking on the web to see if I could find a job description for this HR person. I couldn't find one. Not to take town meeting time, but I would be very interested to see what the duties of this HR person are.
Would you like that question answered? Okay. All right. Anybody else on human resources? All those in favor of approval of the human resources line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. It is not unanimous. The majority of all that is required. The ayes have it. Information technology. Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you again. So this is another
You still have to identify yourself, even though I know who you are.
David Rosenberg, 123 North Street. I'm interested in what's going on with information technology. I see that for the fiscal 2013, there was a salary, which means we have a contractor, I assume, and for fiscal 14, we both have $60,000 expenses and $40,000 salary. So I guess I'd like an explanation of what the plan is for how we're doing information technology.
Last year, we hired a information director, and we shared it with the local school, the elementary school. That person is leaving us, and we're going out on a search right now to replace him with a full-time person who will again be shared between the elementary school and the town.
Second time at the microphone.
So the reason that we still have $60,000 in expenses is that to cover until the new person is hired, or is this going to be while the new person is working, or just until the new person is hired?
Obviously, there are a lot of servers and licenses and other things that, I mean, that's just part of the expense of it. It's not a contractor to replace that person. It's the expense of it, run the website and all of our technology that we run. This is bigger.
Anyone else with a question or comment related to information technology? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. As a point of clarification, each one of these polls is, in my opinion, being used in the same motion, and each person who comes to the microphone is entitled to their 2 times at the microphone for that motion. Thank you. Facilities management. Anyone on facilities management?
And only 12 Woodside Lane. There's an expense item for solar power generation. What is costing us $100,000 a year?
Gary. That was weird. Again, you're bundling.
Rob Garrity, 122 Gordon Street. Under the contract we have with Constellation, it's called the PPA, Power Purchase Agreement, we have to actually buy the solar power off of them. The credits come through a different avenue through Instar. So it's a bit more of a financial game than we'd like to play. We'd like, for instance, just to have a single amount of money they give us and be done with it. But because we're actually buying the power, Constellation is our power supplier. They supply what's also called power. They supply our normal power. They're also selling us the solar power as well. We have to buy it, but we also get the credits. The credits are much larger than our eventual payments because we have to purchase the power.
So this is $100,000. So what is the net to the town? Fritz, you know, just the net $1,000.
And then it's about 30 years. On a case for probably 2 years, although some people may think it's going to be more than that.
$230,000?
Yes, $230,000. Madam Moderator, Mr. Lehan wanted to comment about a previous item. Would that be allowed?
That's already been voted on and approved?
Yes. It would be very instructive for
Oh,
town.
well, you know what, it's going to be instructive for town meeting, by all means.
Public Relations Director, Mr. Mayor. Question on human resources, the gentleman asked that question. Just to give you an example.
Yeah, it's tough to hear you with that.
We negotiate, Jack mentioned we negotiate 5 contracts. And those of you that are involved in benefit packages know how complicated they have become. By having a human resource director in place this year, even though we were given a 7.1% increase for my health insurance, he went out on his own, did a number of different carriers, brought it back to our existing carrier, renegotiated the savings, and brought $137,000 worth of savings reduction that he would not have had if not that person been in place. I believe he did more than paying for himself in the benefits he brings back to the town.
Thank you. All right, back to facilities management. Anyone else with a question on facilities management? Seeing no one at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of facilities management, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Town clerk elections, voter registration. Who has a question? Seeing nobody at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of town clerk elections and voter registration, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Planning and development. Somebody had a question on planning and development.
Bob Archer, 3 Fleetwood Drive. The increase between FY13 and FY14 is approximately $75,000. That was the request, and as you recommended, it's an increase of $35,000. I'd like to comment as to the size of the increase.
The increase is for a town planner position. We don't have the resources to hire it for a full calendar or full fiscal year, so we're requesting it for half a year. Mr. Hathaway talked about some of the responsibilities of the planner. Towns that are aggressively managing their growth, and I said managing their growth in a way that conforms to what the community wants, have planners in place. They coordinate our bylaws. We have bylaws that contradict each other. We have bylaws that 4 people could sit and interpret and get 4 different answers. Planners bring that together, bring some sequence to that, bring some organization to that. They work with their DPW on the engineering components. They're an asset to the planning board in trying to work through that. The real value, though, to a planner is that they become the public relations director for the community. They actively work with developers. They actively go out and seek the kinds of developments we want, as opposed to sometimes the kinds we don't want. Walpole, where we're going to, maybe Rick will comment on that. I believe they have 3 planners. You don't live there, you live in Norfolk, but you police the town. They have, I think, 3 planners, and they brought tremendous benefit to the town. So it's been very, we should have put this position in a long time ago, we just haven't had the funds to do it. It will dramatically help our planning process and help us bring more consistency to our growth.
Is there any other questions relative to planning and development? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next page, police. Who has questions relative to the police? Seeing no one on the mic, I'm assuming this question was answered earlier. All of those in favor of approval of the police line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Again, unanimous. Fire and ambulance. Does anyone have any questions regarding fire and ambulance? We don't raise our hands here. We get up and we walk down and we come to the microphone because I have a horrible time seeing people in the audience and I could miss you. And I didn't miss you, but people farther back I could miss. My aging eyes.
Andy Weitzman, 3 Chatham Road. This is really just a basic question. Are we voting on the department request or the recommended?
Recommended.
All right. Which one?
Recommended.
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 Thank you.
Anyone else with a question regarding fire and ambulance?
143 North Street. This is the recommended, in other words, by you? Okay. Is there a difference between what they requested and what you recommend?
It's written in the warrant.
It is, okay.
There's a department request line, followed by a recommended line. And for fire and ambulance, department is 137,731. Looks like they lost out on $770,000.
What is that $70,000 not buying us? Or giving them?
We implemented a strategy last year on a pilot basis that relates to callbacks when the ambulance goes out. We have ALS, Advanced Life Support capability in town. And the chief asked us to implement a pilot program, which we did, and he requested that that program continue into this new fiscal year. We're supportive of the program, but we're not confident in the costs of the program at this point in time. So it is not in the budget as you see it, but we're reworking the program to see if we can't get it a more, quite frankly, just at a lower cost and still accomplish the same thing. And the chief is actively working on that strategy now. The program is still funded through July, and we'll know before July what the new changes are, and we'll probably bring forward a recommendation in the fall meeting.
Just want to check on for the fire department.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question regarding fire and ambulance? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of fire and ambulance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next is building department. Does anyone have a question or comment relative to building department? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next up, Norfolk Elementary. Who here has a question regarding Norfolk Elementary? Or comment?
Jim Geekley for Robin Hood. I have a question probably for both elementary and Kingsville regional. It has to do with talking about speech pathologists or therapy services that are supplied to special needs individuals. And we're now bringing on a person hired as a staff member. I don't know what you do. A couple of questions here in my 5 minutes. Do you also contract for physical therapy and contract also OT? That's one question. The money that you're paying out in salary for the speech pathologist, are you able to bill back any insurances to recoup money that would be help offset the cost of that specific speech pathologist? And the next question on that has to do with if the individual who's receiving services for a chronic condition that exists, goes in for surgery, comes back to the school requiring therapy services, do we bill then their insurance company rather than us doing it, which is not related or may not be related to their actual chronic condition?
Dr. Lardy? I guess not Dr. Lardy.
No. Dr. Lewis. We have a three-pronged question. We have on staff at King Philip Regional one speech and language pathologist who serves all the students in the district. We do not contract out. The person is a staff member. The second part is regarding how it is billed. Under special education regulations, speech and language pathology, depending on how those services are given, is defined as either an educational need, which whereby we pick that up because we're the educational institute, or that need is looked upon as a medical need. If it is considered, the therapy is considered for that individual as a medical need, that goes back to Medicare, if they're Medicare eligible. When someone is hospitalized in the hospital and they're receiving services and they come back to King Philip, they're of course then assessed. And again, the same regulation applies, whether it's considered an educational need or whether it's considered a medical need. If it's a medical need, then it gets billed that way. The other, this is also a piece that goes on with, we get some reimbursement under circuit breaker, and circuit breaker is very, very specific. If the child meets that threshold, what is considered medical needs versus an educational need. So we get reimbursed for education.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm not, it depends, it's a state, I don't have the exact dollar amount. I could probably look that up for you, but it is state regulated.
Dr. Alardi.
At the elementary level, we also have staff speech and language therapists, as was going to be explained. Services are provided through the school if the disability is an educational disability or impacts a child's ability to access the curriculum. We have a different standard. Many students receive outside therapies through medical insurance if it's a medical need. We provide the services if it's an educational need. We have looked at contracting out. It is actually less expensive for us to provide the services by hiring a full-time staff member than it is to pay to contract out for the services.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a question relative to Norfolk Elementary? Seeing no one at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of Norfolk Elementary's budget, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Is there anyone with a question regarding King Philip Regional that wasn't already answered by Dr. Zaleski? Seeing no one?
Chatham Road. Again, I just want clarification because Dr. Liz, where you were, you presented, I presume, as the department request, a budget increase of 15% to the town of Norfolk.
Yes, please ask.
Excuse me, no, this isn't a conversation. You ask whatever questions you have, and when you're done with however many questions you have, then someone can come up.
I guess my question is the recommended budget amount for the Kingston Borough, is that in agreement with what you presented?
Are you finished with your questions? Then you can have a seat, and Dr. Linsky will come up and answer your questions.
That would be yes.
All right, then. Do you have any other questions?
Scott Dittrich, 7 Hoover Road. Last night in the Sun Chronicle, there was criticism again of King Philip as far as cutting sports and other activities. You created an atmosphere at the high school where kids were pitted against other kids, where some teams were being told they were cut, and other teams were not being cut, and other activities were being cut. Did some miraculous meeting take place last night where all these cuts were reinstituted?
Did that complete your question? And have a seat. You can even have a seat here if you think you're going to have a follow-up question. And doctor, you don't actually have to come to the middle every single time you use that mic.
It has a big no on it, just so that you know.
Mr. Tallerman was right. Doesn't like my yes and no.
We have been working on the budget since October, and going through the budget, we were looking for economies and looking at our original request, which was a total increase of 8.1% on the operation, which was level service. We then go and look at some different scenarios based on what the town's assessments are, and then we have to come up with dollar amounts that we'd be looking at a reduction. So we actually went through the budget looking for areas that we would potentially need to reduce, all the way down to reducing almost $1.8 million from the budget. In doing that, we have to identify certain line items, budget items for that in the scenarios. And our budgets are public and out in the open. And one of those areas that we looked at was extracurricular sports and extracurricular or co-curricular activities. There were, in order to come with the line, we said it had to be X number of dollars, and then trying to figure out by the actual cost of sports running, we looked at that. The community came out, they spoke, their concern. Our concern also, we believe that full education for a child encompasses everything. However, we have lost staff over the years. Our current class sizes are running on average of 32 students in a classroom, in some cases 34 students in a classroom. And in doing that, if we had to cut that deep, we needed to make some decisions about where that money was going to come from and what potential programs were going to be hit, because we really scaled down the budget as we go through. We went back over the budget again. The school committee looked at the budget, listened to the community, and voted to place on their additional funding for under excess and deficiencies. We have a limited amount in excess and deficiencies. By state law, you can hold up to 5% of excess and deficiencies, which is about 1.2 million for our budget. Because of the support of the excess and deficiencies over the past years and the conversion over from the wastewater treatment plant to the septic system, which was required by the health department, that took out about $500,000 of potential funds. So we're running at a very low excess deficiency. So if something happens, a boiler goes, the roof goes, etc., we have to go somewhere to get the funds for that. So we do have to keep something for that kind of contingency. The school committee looked into that. We went through, we looked again, we checked different line items, and we did find one area where it had been the wastewater treatment plant that had been carried over, which gave us some other additional funds that we streamlined. We've cut other line items. We still are looking at, and we will still be meeting back in May on the sports, specifically the cost of the sport and the fees that are charged, because sports are not free. Parents do pay, depending on the sport, a fee for that. So we went through, we streamlined again, and we made those additional cuts in other areas. And that is in order to maintain all of those pieces with all the other reductions, including, as you saw, we had, it was over $300,000 in cost savings that came out of our negotiations for healthcare. So there's been a lot of movement in that, in those areas to do those savings. We are still looking at, we do look at the budget, because you never know where the lines may go, move a little bit for special education students who hopefully can come to a less restricted budget, a less restricted placement setting as we work through that. We still work with parents and kids coming up to do that. So that's where that comes from. However, not having, we are hopeful. We've worked with the town, and it's been very gracious with us to come in with this current budget the way it is, trying to maintain all those services. Again, we have to, as they say, we have to have another dance partner or the other towns. And if that's the case, I'm going to be honest with you, if another town doesn't come up to what we call the Norfolk 8, which is the 8% assessment, we are going to go back in. We're going to go back in, and all those potential items that we talked about could be back on the table, because we really have to have two towns vote up the budget.
Thank you, Doctor. Anyone else? Oh, I think
Get another.
yes, you do. It was just somebody else.
It's kind of a windy answer, I'd like to know, you pitted.
Ma'am, if you could have a seat. This isn't a conversation.
You pitted kids against one another at King Philip Regional High School.
Excuse me. Also, you should be directing your comments to me. No, you're saying you to her.
The question is, they pitted kids against one another by cutting one team and keeping another team. They cut other activities and not cut activities. I don't understand how they chose this system and why they didn't involve the parents before they started making all of these cuts. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Thank you. Doctor?
As we went into all of the budget meetings, we actually sent out connected messages to parents, informing them that we would be having budget discussions on the table, and we did encourage parents to come to those meetings. So we did inform the families regarding that. As far as looking at decisions are how we looked at those sports, it was really, there were 3 areas there that we had to look at, and making some, and looking at that as some potential recommendations at the time. One was to ensure that there were still sports that kids could potentially gravitate to, that we didn't want to go and say, well, we just cut fall season or spring season. We wanted to make sure there was something still in place for students as they went through. The second piece is we took a very careful look at the number of participants in each of the sports related to the cost of those sports. Because although people are paying a fee, some sports, because there's a larger number of participants, the fee is less and the overall cost to run that sport is less. The other issue is in looking at, we have some Title IX regulations that we have to look at, which feel that you can't just go and cut a sport, say, for girls and not then look at cutting something that pertains to boys. There has to be some equity there. And those were how we first looked at that. And again, it was getting to look at for a dollar amount figure that we had to come to.
Thank you. Next question.
Jim D. 34 Robin Road. This is a question regarding cutting in some of the sports and the sports budget and how we're looking at some of the sports teams over in King Philip. I have a couple of questions regarding it. It has to do with the issues that we've all been hearing about with concussion injuries, especially in football. It can be in lacrosse. It can be situations in basketball, individuals falling, hitting the court. It's so important is that the state legislature has moved forward and has 3 bills that they have in there on concussions, and one is to have a special commission that's going to be set up looking at prevention of injuries. And my question is whether or not the school feels in cutting the budgets and the personnel that they have available on the field, the prevention that they do as far as evaluating the individuals before they play, and then the follow-up after injury before allowing them to come back to play. Does the school system feel that they have an adequate system in place that meets those needs for the individuals so they do not wind up being compromised because they are not being monitored as well as they should be and being allowed in appropriately into a sport, whether they should or should not be? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Zielinski.
King Philip has a concussion policy. It's a multi-page policy. It's go back to play because we, by state law, we do concussion testing on our students who come in, students who play what are considered contact sports and band. You may be surprised at how many kids are marching in a band and fall and can get themselves a concussion. It's amazing. But we do have that. All students receive their baseline tests. We have that information. We have a sports trainer who goes around to the other sports. And it's called, some sports are a little bit more needed than others. Goes around and does that. We have a whole protocol system for when students come back in. And then they have to be retested. So when a student may have a concussion, they may come to school, but based on the doctor's recommendation, they may not be able to sit and do any tests, quizzes, lights are an issue. So we have a very structured protocol. I'd be happy to give it. It's in our policy. If you just call the office, we're happy to give that to you. And we do have someone who actively monitors that. And it not only is the concussions that occur in sports, it's also concussions that occur outside. Students play in youth leagues, they get hurt, keeping walking down the street and fall. And so any of that information is also given to us. All of our coaches are trained in concussion. It is a requirement for them to be a coach. So that answers your question.
Thank you very much. I try to avoid asking that answer question because it rarely ever does.
No.
Sir, you were next up to Mike. You have a question relative to the budget. King Philip.
David Ashford, 106 Seacon Street. I think the question that I have is relative to the sports thing, and I just would like a yes/no answer. If you're cutting sports activities that were in place in 2013 for 2014, is the program that is in effect now going to be cut with the budget that is presented tonight?
With the budget tonight, as is, and with another town coming to the end, so to speak, the answer is, right, this is no. It will not be,
I got a text message from my son. I was not notified. By you or?
Excuse me, once again, the questions aren't
Okay.
to her.
Okay.
The question is to me relative to the budget, which we've just been informed, I'm talking, which we've just been informed will not be impacting sports for 2014.
But I just want her to answer the question that she didn't answer it.
Which
We were
is-
not notified by her, or Lisa Oliver.
So is your question, there's somebody speaking, and it's not any of you. It's her. Is your question, how were the parents notified?
Because she said we were notified. But okay.
Perhaps she could reiterate it because you didn't hear it. I did hear what she said. But if it will make you feel better, we'll have her come back up and say how the parents were notified.
Because I know of at least 100 parents that were not notified. So maybe 100 of us missed that email. I'm just curious.
Okay, now you have a seat. You can sit right there if you've got a second question. You don't have to go back.
We used our system, which is related to our webpage fusion page. It's called Connect Ed. We actually sent out it was an email that went through the Connect Ed. It goes and dials into or sends to all the families' homes regarding that. And that message went out, and that was in regards to the budget and the budget meetings regarding just to go with the budget.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a question that actually impacts the budget? Which is kind of what we're here about, is the budget. So, seeing nobody at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of the King Philip Regional Operating System operating budget as it appears in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. I haven't said opposed yet. Jumping the gun. Opposed? No. Majority was what was required. The ayes have it. Highway. Who here has a question about highway? Seeing nobody, all of those in favor of approval of highway, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Vehicle maintenance. Who here has a question about vehicle maintenance? I don't see anyone at a microphone for vehicle maintenance, so all of those in favor of approval of vehicle maintenance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. It is not unanimous. However, the ayes carried and majority was required. Next item, grounds municipal.
Madam Moderator, I would like an explanation on the salary increase of $17,000 and the expense increase of $10,000.
If you could please state your name and your street address.
Excuse me.
The Madam Moderator part was awesome, though.
Bob Boucher, 3 Fleetwood Drive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not working right now.
All right, how's that? Ground municipal, the increase is due to that organizational structure change I talked about where we eliminated the foreman but added 2 assistant foremen. So in this case, I don't know if it's 50-50, but a large portion of, about 50% of the foreman's salary was in the grounds municipal, and now we have a full staff person who's the assistant foreman. On the expense side, we've actually just moved $10,000. We consolidated some budgets from cemetery up to the grounds department. It's all related to grounds care.
Second question, sir?
Bob Boucher, 3 Fleetwood Drive, Madam Moderator. Is there a list somewhere that I can access that would show me what grounds are covered under municipal grounds?
I could have the DPW have that for you, Roger.
Excellent. Seeing nobody else with a question relative to grounds municipal, all those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next page. Road program is the next item. I feel like the next item up for bid. Who here has a question relative to the road program? A hold was placed on the road program. I see people getting up. I'm not sure if they're leaving or they're coming. I don't want to highlight attention, but seeing nobody at the microphone, all those in favor of approval of the road program, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is not unanimous. However, a majority is all that here has a question relative to the transfer station?
Madam Moderator, Bob Boucher, 3 Fleetwood Drive.
We are getting good at this.
I don't know about that, but anyway. My question is simply, does the transfer station make money? Or is it a net cost to the town?
This definitely does not make money. We try very hard to have it break even. I think if you add in benefits, et cetera, it's probably at a slight loss. We're trying to change that. The new DPW director, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, has brought, along with one of his foremen, has brought a lot of new services. If you are selectmen, watching the Selectmen Show Addict, you'll hear him talk about all the new materials that he's selling. He's trying to bring in materials from, have materials dropped off by whether they're commercial or residential, will pay for those. He's processing those materials and then selling them back on the way out. So we're definitely trying to make it, I don't want to say a profit center, but we're trying to reduce the cost to the town.
You don't need to say it twice.
Thank you. The reason I asked that question was if I looked at the revenue projections or the revenue budget, it's not a page, but the dollar amounts for the transfer station and compared those with the budget amounts for the transfer station, it appeared that there was a gain every year. The other, I have that comment, and then I would like to ask, again, is there some place that I could get a breakdown as to how much of the revenue comes from fees, how much comes from bags, how much comes from selling materials, etc.?
Mr. Garrity, would you like to answer this transfer station question?
Certainly would.
That's grand.
Transfer station revenue, as you know, is higher than the transfer station expense. Transfer station expense does not include employee benefits. So if you add that in, we are running, we stick all the employee benefits in one line. So if you add that in, it's a little to the right. We regularly get breakdowns of what the revenue categories are. So those are available in the selectmen's minutes, and I'm sure we could pack that together for you.
Which I'm sure you already have at home. No?
You can check those on the web.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to make a suggestion that perhaps the transfer station should consider a swap area. I think that would be a big draw. Just saying, I think I'm having wonderful swap area.
That has been a conversation topic of many selectmen.
Yeah, I would go. I'm just saying I would go. Okay. Anyone else with a question about the transfer station? Formerly known as the dump. All of those.
Point of order. It is the Shrine Girl Transfer Station.
All of those in favor of approval of the line item transfer station, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next is special programs under the Human Services rubric.
David Rosenberg, 123 North Street. Madam Moderator, I'd like to know what SNCARC stands for, and I'd like to know what the special programs are.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Who would like to tell us what CARC means?
Madam Moderator?
Yes, sir.
It is the Southern Norfolk County Association for Retarded Citizens. They run a day rehabilitation facility in Westwood, Massachusetts, right down the street from the Bavarian. And that's in the name of the place. Certain citizens who have aged out of the T22 program go there for day rehabilitation services.
Was that both parts of the question?
No. What was the second part?
What are the special programs?
Well, that's the category we give to SNCARC. And the special programs that they do there are things like gardening, art therapy. These are developmentally disabled adults who cannot go to schools anymore and have another option open to them. There are also family support and rescue care programs in the Autism Center, the Autism Law Enforcement Coalition. All these services are supported with this this assessment really to us and a number of other towns in Southern Norfolk.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a question relative to special programs? Seeing nobody racing to a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Council on Aging. Who had a question relative to Council on Aging? I don't see anybody moving to the microphone, so this may have been one that was answered previously. All of those in favor of approval of the Council on Aging line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Next, on the last page of the general fund budget, library. Who here had a question relative to the budget on library? I don't see anyone approaching a microphone. Now I see someone approaching a microphone.
I have a question.
Okay, hop on down. No, don't start it until you get to the microphone. Remember, you got to introduce yourself and all sorts of fun stuff.
Hi. Actually, my question.
Introduce yourself.
Pamela Russell, 143 North Street. Sorry. Okay. I actually, when we went through the services, I missed saying hold on veteran services.
Well, veteran services has already been voted on and approved.
Okay. So I can.
Do you have a question regarding library?
No.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question regarding library? All of those in favor of approval of library, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Employee benefits under fixed costs.
I'm racing to the microphone, madam.
I thought you were dancing, and I was like, excited.
Bob Boucher, 3 Fleetwood Drive, Madam Mayor. In the budget, we have a department request, and I don't know if that title fits, but anyway, it was a request of $3,740,485. The recommended amount was $3,543,485. So there was a decrease of approximately $200,000. On the web, there was an additional item breaking down employee benefits. It's not in the booklet here. And I would like to know, item by item, health insurance, life insurance, longevity, etc., what the recommended amounts, no, I know what the recommended amounts were, but what the department requests were. In other words, what items were cut to make up that $200,000?
The only line item that was cut was medical insurance, and you're correct. The naming in this scenario really is proper. The department request is really our first estimate as to where the budgets will come in for all these contracts that we have to negotiate. As Mr. Lehan pointed out earlier, we had some significant savings in our medical insurance when our HR director went out and did some due diligence and homework and was able to negotiate that number down farther. So it's not, there's nothing that we're not receiving that any employee is going to long for at the end of the day.
Specifically interested to know whether there was any cut made in the state retirement system.
There was not.
So in other words, we're fully funded. Hey,
It's all right. It's all right. You danced to the microphone last time. I'll give it to you.
We're fully funded what we have to.
Yes, that's a very smooth way of saying it. We're fully funded in what we are required to pay. Ideally, we would be funding some of our future benefits, but we tried to do that a year ago with a stabilization fund and we're not successful. Perhaps when we have some more new growth, we can revisit that.
All right, anybody else with a question relative to employee benefits? See no one else raising to the microphone. All those in favor of approval of this fixed cost line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
One on the Gold Street well has been built and is it online? Second one has to do with the underground utility service charge. It's on everybody's electric bill for the center of town, underground wires being constructed. When will that be finished as far as paying it? I asked it last year as well, didn't get an answer. And if there is any discussion moving forward that would be brought forward to further other areas in the town where wire be further buried underground under the same utility service charge. Thank you.
Did you say Mill River well? Is that the first question?
Gold Street.
Oh, Gold Street is up and running.
Gold Street is up and running. So we have 2 wells up and running, Spruce Road and Gold Street. There was a supplemental well at Gold Street, and that is up and running. We still need a separate source at some point. That's something we've talked about at selectmen meetings. We've got some money budgeted to do some testing work out around the town in a number of different sites. Underground utilities will continue to charge, and it's difficult for me to get an answer from the utilities as to when they'll stop that surcharge. But the debt that we are paying is still going through at least 2020. They still need to collect their portion, and remember the legislation that happened, they get to collect funds until they're made whole in their project cost. I'll have to ask them for an updated audit. Again, as I've said a couple of times, dealing with utilities is not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I will get that and have that available at the selectmen's office.
The third portion of his question was, will there be further wire being buried?
There are no plans for that at this time, nor have it even been discussed.
Another gentleman who looks like he's approaching the microphone.
Yeah, this one.
Sure, what the heck? Live it up.
John McFeely, to answer the topic, the utilities addition to our bills generally affected our electric bills and our phone bills. I don't get a phone bill from the provider that assesses it any longer, but I believe I saw the electric assessment disappeared within the past 6 months or so of my electric bill.
Good.
Well, all right, that's a positive.
So the answer is, if that's correct, and I'll check on it, but if the answer is that it's already settled.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question or an answer or some positive feedback relative to debt service? Seeing nobody at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of this line item, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We go back to Article 5, wherein the advisory board read that they moved to fix the compensation of the elected position of town clerk at $62,920 as provided for in the Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108 for the fiscal year commencing on July 1, 2013. Y'all already voted on that. And here's the part that you're going to vote on now. And so all of those, is there any questions or comments relative to everything from and down to $33,360,004? Seeing no one at a microphone, all of those in favor of approval of this portion of the budget. I'm sorry, I don't recognize people yelling in the audience. I see no one at a microphone. All of those in favor of approval of this portion of the budget. Oh, Bob. All the way down, man, all the way down. You're going to interrupt me when I'm almost wrapped up with the budget. You're coming all the way down. It's good for your heart. You can use that microphone right there, though. You don't have to go to
I've answered my question on the way down.
All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous, or so much less so than unanimous, but still nevertheless, majority carries 2/3. Majority was required to secure over the chortling. So we're on to Article 6. Oh, you know what? There's a motion before us to have a 10-minute break. All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. No 10-minute break. Hurry, go fast. I'll talk slow, you go fast.
Are you hearing me all right?
No, I can't hear you at all.
Are you hearing me now? One side works, the other doesn't. All right. Madam Moderator, I move to transfer the sum of $1,543,583 from the Department of Public Works Water Division revenues and retained earnings to fund the Water Division's maintenance and operating expenses and the Water Division debt for the fiscal year commencing on July 1, 2013 as follows. Salary, $314,349. Expenses, $744,994. Total of maintenance and operating expenses, $1,059,343. Debt service, $484,240. Total Water Division budget, $1,543,583.
Seconded.
The Water Division is a separate entity from the regular town budget. It's funded entirely by revenues from sales of town water by the users. The budget is down just a little bit from last year. Mostly that's debt paid on debt service has gone down. Expenses have gone down a little, and the salaries have gone up a little. But otherwise, it's very little change from last year. In addition, I could note also that the reserves that have been pretty well spent down over the last several years for cleaning wells, drilling and cleaning and that sort of thing are starting to be built up again. Perhaps that we have a need to search for additional water supply, so the reserves will be used for that purpose when the time comes. In addition, I might mention that we have had a leak problem in the past.
Oh, I get, there's still people who can't hear you in the back. I don't know, is the handheld microphone around for us? All the helpful advice.
Does that work? Yeah. I was just mentioning some of the operational things that have happened in the Water Division. The problem that we have had for quite a few years has been remedied, and in fact our rate of leaking water loss from leakage is now better than average in surrounding towns. So there's been a big improvement in that area. Bob McGee and the DPW have done a really fine job with respect to that issue. So that's some of the operational things that are going on. The big thing is that in a few years we will be looking for additional water, and those reserves will be needed for that.
I have on my sheet that there was going to be 5 minutes as well, no, not needed. All right, so ends the presentation on Article 6. Now begins the discussion on Article 6. Anyone would like to come down to the yes, no, or question microphone relative to Article 6?
Moderator, Doug Girl, 8 Chatham Road. I just have a question, and I go to the Gould Street facility frequently, almost daily, and oftentimes I see vehicles down there working or inspecting or something. Appears weekly. I was just wondering what that activity is, and is it a contract service, and how much do we pay for it?
Thank you.
We go to the wells daily. We go to the wells daily, whether it's a town employee or our contractor Whitewater. And we're transitioning from having Whitewater do that on a daily basis to having our own employees. We've been down as low as, I think, 1.5 employees in the water division. And now we're up to, I think the number is 3. So we're taking back some of those. If you heard budgets over the past 4 or 5 years, as we had a lot of turnover and lost some of our senior people, we contracted with Whitewater and had them perform those and some other duties for us, like hydrant flushing, and we're taking that over from them as well. Finding that line item might be a challenge. Let's do this. Weekday coverage, we're paying Whitewater $67,000 in weekend coverage. We were paying $48,000. Right now, we're planning to cut that down to at least $37,000. So as I said, we're trying to, now we've got more licensed people on our staff. And you have to be licensed both for pumping the water and for systems out in the street. So we've got more people on staff that are able to do that.
Thank you. Any other questions relative or comments for or against the approval of Article 6? Seeing no one on a microphone, all of those in favor of the approval of Article 6 as written in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. The majority was required. I am going to interrupt here for one moment in order to indicate that some of you may or may not be aware of this particular article. I have been fairly vocal against, and so I don't think that it's appropriate for me to moderate this particular article. So my good friend and deputy moderator, Jay Tallerman, is in the house. He's going to come up, and I'm going to go eat my banana and sit in the front row and debate if I'm going to speak on this article or not.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 7. Okay, this article proposes modifying the 2 times limit on a microphone for speaking at town meeting. The advisory board heard a lot of pros and cons behind the motive of this particular article. We really felt that there were provisions in place already today to come up and speak more. Folks could raise a point of order to then correct a specific fact. People can move that rules be waived or also attend the organizational meeting if additional time or a different structure is required. We felt that, again, unanimously, that if this article passes as is, there would in effect be no limit to the amount of discussion for today. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I move a substitute motion.
You may make a motion.
I move to amend the advisory committee IP motion by adding the following new motion. Article 1, Section 7D2 is hereby amended by inserting at the end there the following new sentence. Clause A may be suspended for an individual article upon a majority vote of town meeting. The original underlying...
Wait 1 second. Second. Okay.
The original underlying article basically took out Clause A. Now, Clause A was added to the bylaws probably about 8-9 years ago when Dan Winslow became our moderator, and we worked through we came up with some new town meeting rules. Prior to that, there had been no limit on debate other than the moderator controlling the meeting. When Dan came in, he appointed a committee, which included myself. I was on this committee. I am correcting my own mistake, I view. Mr. Boucher was on this committee, a number of people, Mrs. Boucher was on this committee, a number of people who had been to town meeting and had been kind of the troublemakers at town meeting were on the committee. So we came up with this rule. And over time, I think the rule has, in certain cases, stifled what needs to happen to have full discussion of an article. Many times, town meeting, and this happened tonight, is the first time a lot of folks see something. So you come to town meeting cold, you maybe get a warrant in the mail, you don't understand it fully. And a lot of the things we do at town meeting are routine, we do them the same every year, time after time. But some of them are very complicated new. We saw this in the fall town meeting when we did not only a bylaw on hunting, but we did a downtown zoning piece. And there are times when you just can't accomplish everything you need to do with 1 or 2 shots at the mic. And if you're an article proponent, say you've come up with an article, and people are speaking about it, under the application of the rule, you can speak twice. However, someone comes up after you've already had your second shot, someone comes up and says something which isn't technically a question. It's not a question. It's a statement of what they believe to be fact. You cannot
correct that misstatement of fact. Now, the bylaw, so the Board of Selectmen put forward an article which would take out the limit. We heard complaints about that. There were certain people who are the moderator who did not think that that would produce a good process. And was concerned that what that did was that put all the onus on the moderator position to pick and choose on who could speak more than once, who could speak twice or 3 times or 4 times. Because at the end of the day, the moderator controls the conversation. And understandably, the moderator was concerned that that puts a lot of pressure and onus on the position that just wasn't welcome. So what we've done, this amendment that I'm forwarding today, allows town meeting, allows you guys to say, this article is tough. This article is going to demand a lot of conversation. We don't want to be for 4 hours, but we need to do this article. So the point of town articles hands, so the town meeting, you folks, decide, okay, this one's tough. We'll vote, we'll allow a rule suspension. The moderator can still shut people off. And a lot of faces I see out here were in town meeting before we passed these rules. And you all remember Frank Gross, who would determine you've spoken enough. The town meeting has decided. Now, I love this quote. Concord, Mass, in their town meeting manual. I went through about 15 to 18 town meeting manuals. I found 3 towns that do have a similar limit. Southbridge, I think Southbridge goes 3 times. A couple other towns do 2 times, but you can speak for 10 minutes at a time in native. You don't speak twice, but 10 minutes. You get vegetables thrown at you. Here's Concord, and this is very important. A point may come in the deliberation when little, if any, new light is being shed on the subject. When this appears to be the case, it has been a Concord moderator custom to remind the meeting the length of time already devoted to deliberation and to encourage those still wishing to be heard to limit their remarks to points not already made. Frequently, such a reminder is effective in bringing an issue to a prompt vote. The moderator, will still have the ability to shut off debate. That's not being taken away. But what we're saying is, in certain cases, a 2-and-out rule, it doesn't work. Because there are things that need to be said or corrected, or maybe a question that wasn't asked that should have been asked. And under the 2 rule, I have to come up with every single question that I have on an article when I'm getting up once or twice. And frankly, some of these articles are very complicated. When you're zoning solar fields, when you're putting in medical marijuana facilities, when you're determining whether or not people can go on other people's private land to hunt without having to have posters all over the place saying don't hunt. There are complicated issues. They deserve full debate. We're saying, let's put this in the hands of town meeting to decide when an article, a particular article, not the whole meeting, one article, when this one article needs more debate. So that's what I'm offering to you as a substitute. I hope you consider it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Garrity, you'll recognize that I suspended as a moderator may do the 5-minute limit. Just so that we understand a little bit about what a moderator does and does not do. I work with a lot of moderators. Whether or not you have this bylaw or not, or whether we tinker about it tonight so that town meeting gets to decide who gets to speak twice and who doesn't, it doesn't matter at the end of the day because the moderator can either follow the rules or not follow the rules with impunity, provided that there's no malice at all in terms of how the moderator conducts themselves. So it is good to have some rules in place, and that's what town meeting can vote on tonight. As to the tinkering of it, it really makes no difference at the end of the day, because Ms. Van Tine or myself, and I have suspended rules before in my limited role as deputy moderator, can ignore them, or if you abolish them, she could still apply them as she sees fit, or she could take a motion to have people make a popularity vote as to who can speak twice or not.
Point of order.
So with that in mind, just to have the histrionics in place, I think we have that's the no mic over there, Mr. Dooley.
Mr. Moderator, Sean Dooley, 76 Cleveland Street. I just wanted to first thank Mr. Garrity for making my point as he ran along for over 8 minutes. That
easy.
If we went on and had this ongoing debate over 5 minutes on every single article, we could be here for 5, 6, 7 nights, and I think that defeats the process of everyone having a fair voice. Because by the 3rd, 4th, 5th night, there's 2 or 3 people left in the audience making all the decisions. Because most of us are busy, we have children, we have other things in life. I love the democratic process, but letting things run on ad nauseum is not good for the overall democratic process. I'd also like to correct his notion that he said that no one can correct a mistake. Per our town bylaw, first, unless otherwise approved by the moderator, no person shall speak more than twice unless to correct a mistake or a mistake. So it's already written in our bylaw that if someone comes up and makes a mistake or makes a misstatement, you are already allowed per our bylaw to speak on it. In addition, as Mr. Deputy Moderator has pointed out, at any time, if you were coming up with an additional thing in an entire new line of question, the moderator can make that decision, given our current bylaws, to address, allow another person to address a third or fourth time at the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carey, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Which I'll suspend if need.
So, no one's talking about 5 to 6 night town meeting. I'd point out that the town of Arlington, by the way, goes for Saturdays, and they've been known to go 2 or 3 or 4 Saturdays. We're not talking about that. I was very specific that we have 1 or 2 or 3 articles a night, perhaps, at town meeting, that require a little more debate. I would argue that, in my memory, we have not suspended the 2-person rule on a pure misstatement. It has been allowed for a person to answer a question, but I can recall specific circumstances where people were saying something that was not true, people were agitating to answer that, and were not allowed to. And we're not talking about town meeting saying, you can speak 4 times and you can vote, only speak twice. We're talking about for this one article. This article, we're going to suspend the rule, and we'll have the debate, and then next article, it's back to 2. Because there are 27 articles tonight, most of them are going to fly by. There's not going to be a lot of debate. We spent $32 million pretty quickly. So town meeting can move when it wants to. I'm saying there are certain times when you need to have more debate. And it was said at our public meeting when we talked about this that the moderator was uncomfortable suspending the rule for anybody. She didn't want to be the one to pick and choose.
Let's
So
not
that's fine.
get into what other people say.
My name is Carolyn Van Tine, and I live at 76 Cleveland Street. Obviously, I'm interested in this article. I've been to many of the meetings on this article. I spoke before the advisory board, which I would like to think is one of the reasons they moved to indefinitely postpone, because I had issues with the way it was drafted. I've been very clear. I think folks have seen here tonight that I'm willing to be flexible, especially if there's some tap dancing involved, literally tap dancing, in order for the information to come out. I'm concerned that we are tinkering on the floor of town meeting at the 11th hour. I understood that the advisory board was going to indefinitely postpone. I asked if there was going to be a substitute motion on May 1st, and this evening I received the substitute motion, and that's concerning. I understand this sort of 1776 imploring of the democratic process and citing to Concord and Arlington. It's not relevant. We're in Norfolk. And in Norfolk, the moderator can do whatever she or he wants. But we don't want to. We want to have some guidelines to follow. And the guidelines that are currently in place work. If there's something about them that doesn't work, I suggest it not be tinkered with on the floor of town meeting. That there is a time and a place for that, and this is not that time or that place.
Is there anyone else with a comment or a question on the motion to, I'm going to call it a motion to substitute, before we take a vote? Well, we're not quite there yet. Okay, seeing no further, Mr. Rosen. You can speak right from where we are.
Thank you. David Rosenberg, 123 North Street. I have a question about how this mechanism would work if this substitute motion is accepted and passed. In particular, at what point in the discussion of an article would the vote be taken to suspend the rule for that article? And would that, how would such a vote be called? When would it be called?
I had somewhat of the same question myself, Mr. Rosenberg, because it doesn't say who would make the motion speaker or whether the moderator would just put it to the audience themselves. I don't know if Mr. Garrity will let answer the question if he'd like to, if he has a thought on that. It would, in the absence of any clarity or in the presence of ambiguity, it'd be up to the moderator to essentially put that motion to the floor.
Like any motion, I would imagine, and in the absence of saying only someone else can make the motion, that any member of town meeting can make a motion. And much like a point of order in the middle, which can be made in the middle of a debate, sometimes we might not know that a certain article is going to require more conversation. Something comes out that makes people think twice. You would make the motion during the article. If you do it beforehand, again, the point is not to be rigid. The point is to allow discussion, appropriate discussion, to get a good decision and move on.
Mr. Fronczak.
Arthur Fronczak, 14 Main Street. I'm not the no mic, but I think I have questions to sort of clarify. I'll take that one out. Here, I can just punch over. Okay, yes. So, Mr. Garrity, so these are two points of clarification that I want to ask. First, Mr. Garrity mentioned town meetings in the past where a person tried to avail themselves of the opportunity to correct a factual misstatement. I don't remember a case of somebody identifying themselves as saying, Madam Moderator, I would like to correct something. So I don't recall that, and I perhaps wasn't paying attention, but I wanted to ask Mr. Garrity, in his view, if somebody had tried to explicitly invoke that and was denied. That's my first question. My second question is sort of a concern that I would ask him to speak to. I can totally appreciate the desire to have adequate discussion. My concern is along the line of thought of not really knowing until that moment that you need more discussion, because I don't know in that moment, oftentimes if things are kind of partisan, it's going back and forth. I don't know how you separate the no's, the yeas and the nays from fighting over something from a vote on, well, we would like to take a step back from our positions and just rationally, idealistically extend the date. Won't the vote to invoke Clause A just turn into a yes or no vote by different names?
The first item.
Well, no.
I'm sorry.
We're not going to answer the first question because I don't think the history of when something happened in the past is particularly relevant to the subject matter. As to the second, I'll let Mr. Garrity speak to it very briefly. I really don't think commentary is, I view your question more as a comment, as the way something may unfold under this potential process. I don't think it's something that requires a further answer from Mr. Garrity. I don't think he can, in fairness to him, can predict how this may unfold. I think it was an earnest attempt to find some middle ground, one that some might not agree with, but I take that more as a comment than a question. Anyone else? Seeing none, this is just on the amendment. So if you want to substitute the main motion, which was to indefinitely postpone or dismiss the article with Mr. Garrity's proposed change, say aye. So all those in favor of the motion to substitute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. I'm going to try that one more time before I count it, because I get the close one of the night. All those in favor of the motion to substitute, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. You know what, as the mere deputy moderator, I just want to count that. Who do I have as tellers here? Are there tellers sworn? No. Paul? Come on down, Paul. Mr. Luce, come on down.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, sir.
I confuse easily, and I was somewhat confused about what the vote would entail, the way it was worded, perhaps the way I understood it. If we ran through this one more time, I think we might have a discernible majority vote. And my question is, by voting yea on this one, were we putting forward the substitute motion and voting in favor of the substitute motion? Or if we voted no, here we be voting against the substitute motion or against the deferral motion by the planning board.
Fair point. If you vote yes, if you are voting, if you are, if you are voting yes, you are voting to substitute the main motion, which was to dismiss the article printed in your warrant with the following. And that would be that Article 1, Section 7D2 would be amended by inserting at the end thereof the following new sentence. Clause A may be suspended for an individual article upon a majority vote of town meeting. That Clause A is the limitation of 2 trips to the microphone. That, if you want to substitute the main motion for that, then you would vote yes. Then we would vote again on whether or not to approve it. If you vote no, we are back to the main motion, which we still would have to take a vote on, which is to indefinitely postpone. So I think everyone knows more or less what's going on.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator?
Really, Bob?
Yeah, really, because I don't want to come back and visit this because of
certainly
some error here. There is no clause capital A.
I'm taking it for the intention that it was.
I know, but
this is the motion is for the moderator as written. The clause A would really be small a under the bylaw, which is again, as I mentioned, the limitation of 2 trips to the microphone.
That's fine.
So I'm going to try the verbal one more time. I think we'll be counting anyway. So if you want to substitute, please say aye. Aye. If you are opposed to substituting and want to go back to the motion for indefinite postponement, please say no. No. Let's just take a quick count, guys. So, Paul, if you could take the stage, the FinCom, and the small sign. What's that? Yeah, okay. So, all those in favor of substitution, Paul, you're going to take the left side of the stage and the FinCom. Please raise your green card.
Up high, please, folks.
Can you put your hands down? Thank you. If you are opposed to the motion to substitute and want to return to indefinite postponement, please hold your green card. So the ayes have it, 65 to 40. So, just for the formality, folks, now we have to vote on the substituted motion. So, if you are in favor of amending the article, unless anyone has further discussion on it, seeing none, if you are in favor of amending our general bylaws, as printed up there with the exception of the clause A is actually a little A. Please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? No. I think the ayes have it. You can come back. I can carry on.
Now I'm changing out of my Article 8.
All right.
It's all me, yeah, sure. Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 8 as printed in the warrant. Okay, I believe this is pretty straightforward. Folks are trying to raise money for a artificial turf athletic field at King Philip High School. From what we were told, they're pretty successful at it so far. An account is needed to put the money in. This makes that happen.
For Article 8, I have 10 minutes allocated. Is anyone speaking for 10 minutes on Article 8? All right, questions for Article 8?
Hello? Jeff Bergner, 3 Wampanoag. I just have a few questions. I was wondering how this fund is managed. I was wondering if for some reason more money is collected than is needed, what happens to that money at the end? And then once this project is completed, does this account or this fund close?
Looks like Dr. Liz has an answer for us.
This is a specific dedicated account. It's a capital fund account. All 3 towns have to approve it, just to let you know that. We are doing fundraising to install a turf field. This would allow the money that is raised under the fundraising to go into this account. It cannot therefore be moved or used for any other purpose other than a turf field. When we are successful and we have our new field in place, if there is money left over in the account, or there is revenue that comes in by some potential leasing of that field for different functions, that would still go into the account because the actual grass on top of the field, the turf, needs to be, it lasts between about 15 to 18 years, and it would need to be replaced. So it sort of would, that line would be in there so that that would perpetuate, so that the money would be there to fund that next repair 15 years down the road.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing no one at the microphone, all of those in favor of approval of Article 8, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. The majority was required. Article 9.
Article 9, Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 9 as printed in the warrant. Take the slide for Article 9. While they're forwarding the slide, Article 9 deals with the fact that today businesses in the designated area cannot access routes 1A and 115 directly. There's a frontage road that folks have to go through. At the recommendation of the Zoning Bylaw Committee, this resolves this particular issue, both helping existing businesses out as well as some proposed business development. Thank you.
I had as a note from the organizational meeting that there was going to be a 10-minute dissertation for Articles 9 and 10 combined. 10 minutes for Articles 9 and 10. However, I was also approached prior to town meeting
Ken Brown Senior, 136 North Street, resident.
Oh, wait.
Can I speak?
We haven't gotten to that part of the program
Yeah,
yet. There was, first we have to do, the folks are going to speak for 10 minutes.
Okay, I
And
didn't
then
know
I'm
what folks
gonna-
you were talking about.
These folks, and then you don't get 10 minutes, not until the next moderator with the new bylaw. The planning board has got to make their recommendation after the Jack Hathaway speaks for 10 minutes, and he's saying no. He's not speaking for 10 minutes, so it's up to Mr. Colombo. Come on down.
Okay, where this is a zoning-related article, the planning board is asked in each case to make a recommendation. So a public hearing is held for each of the zoning articles for each of the town meetings. So the public hearing was held, and there is unanimous support for this article from your planning board.
All right, now, what are we doing? All right, well, I'm going to have somebody, this nice man has been waiting, so he's going to get up and ask his question while you guys have whatever conversation you're having over there. Sir, they may have to answer your question, but
No, just a statement.
let's hear it.
It sounds like everybody's going to approve this anyway, but Ken Brown Senior, 136 North Street, resident, also owner of Colonial Fence Company in Brown Realty Corp., 32 Pine Street, Route 115. I'm in favor of this. I think most businesses in that area are in favor of this. We've all pretty much got special permits not to build this frontage road. It was a bad bylaw in regards to the way it's written currently. Frontage roads are very good in the aspect of a frontage road in locations where the town owns it, county owns it, state owns it. Businesses that lease and rent property own it. But the way this is written, and the reason we should eliminate it, is because it's an unfair bylaw in relation to some of the businesses that have large frontages, and then there's others that have short frontages. So it puts an unfair burden for maintenance, insurance, and the like, the way this particular one is written, and it should be eliminated.
Thank you. Could everyone hear him? Okay.
We had Mr. Hathaway talk a lot about revenue, income, progress in that particular commercial industrial area of Norfolk. And that's one way that we can improve it, because we all have to spend a lot of money because of this particular bylaw. I have, because I had to put a road in and not a parking lot. And we had to build to that, and it was a very expensive process. And I'd like to think that Colonial Fence in the town of Norfolk is an asset, not a liability. I built it for that reason because I'm a resident, and a long-time resident. And if I did not get a special permit to not build a frontage road, I would not have put that facility in my own town. But I came to the town to build so tax revenue would come to this town. And I've been working hard to get business owners to come to Norfolk, and we need the revenue, and this is one that needs to be eliminated. And the planning board will have full control over all access and egresses in and out of the properties anyway. And I think they do a great job in managing that. So I don't think we need this particular frontage road in the town of Norfolk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we clarified who the heck it was who was going to come up and speak for their 10 minutes. Mr. Nicodemus is going to come up relative to Articles 9 and 10 combined, yes?
9 first, because I don't know whether there's going to be a substitute motion for 10 dealing with the specific issue.
Oh, you mean 13?
10 has it in there too.
Okay.
All right. Article 9, as we've heard, is requesting that the C1 district, which has 2 areas, on-highway and off-highway development. It's the on-highway development that is at the moment requiring a frontage road. This zoning article would eliminate that and allow road access off of the on-highway district, which is 1A and 115, to occur at 250-foot separation. With the amount of development that is already in that area, we believe this is now more than appropriate to occur. There is a second item on this article that is also, in our opinion, important, and that is a special permit to allow buildings to go above 40 feet to 46 feet, which is exactly what is now allowed in town center for building heights. So we're asking that that also be adopted as allowed as a building height limitation program in this article for the C1 district, which is 1A and 115. Beyond that, I can answer any other questions. Since as a member of the Zoning Bylaw Study Committee, we had a lot of this information processed through us for the last 4 months.
Does anyone have any questions based upon what we've already heard relative to Article 9? Seeing no one at a microphone, all those in favor of approval of Article 9, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. A 2/3 majority was required, and I'm fairly confident, even with my limited math skills, that we have it. Article.
I'd like to move Article 13.
Second.
All right, well, I don't actually need, according to my town meeting time, I don't need the approval of the town meeting in order to move the article, and so I'm going to do it. Article 13.
Stillman, Lake Street. Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 13 as printed in the warrant. This is actually a fairly simple change or move. We're just asking for a moratorium on the medical marijuana for 1 year, and that would allow the town an opportunity to review the Department of Public Health regulations on this new law. The Department of Public Health is supposed to come out with regulations by May 1st. We've been told that they won't come out with regulations until probably January. So there's a huge amount of responsibility on the Department of Public Health to come out with these regulations that are going to really impact on everything we think and do about a dispensary, medical marijuana dispensary in the town. And we really need to have that information before we can honestly make a good decision on what we want to do as a town with a dispensary.
I also have a note that there's going to be someone speaking for 5 minutes on Article 13. Is that you, Mr. Nicodemus? You guys passing the buck over there, one of you.
Is Mike Calusa here?
Mr. Kaliza, come on down. And I'll get to you once he's finished speaking. I will indeed request the recommendation from the planning board so that the town council doesn't come over and scream at me.
Mike Kaliza, member Zoning Bylaw Study Committee. The reason that we have Article 13 is to give the town some breathing room to determine where we want to put our medical marijuana facility. Here, I got it out. I haven't been smoking. The Article 10, which we haven't brought up yet, will identify the location where we would like to put the center. It's an overlay district. It's currently our adult entertainment district in Norfolk. If you're not familiar with that, we do have an adult entertainment district. We felt that this would be a good place to put the facility. And so in the event that the town meeting did not want to put the medical marijuana facility in the as an overlay district in the adult entertainment district, we put Article 13 in as a safety net. So we're hoping that the town approves Article 10, which will be the only place where this center could be located in our town. And one more time, in the event that we did not approve that, the Article 13 would give us a period of time to identify a location for that center.
So now to the planning board.
Can I make a point of clarification that Mr. Cleese is not aware of?
Please.
In defense of Mr. Cleese's comments, he was not at a meeting that took place at 6:30 this evening, so he's probably not aware. Council has advised us that we have in these two articles, Article 10 and Article 13, a contradiction. We want to go forward with a moratorium to allow the state, we all know that sometimes it doesn't end up the way they'd like it to be. We want want to be sure we understand all the regulations and all the considerations associated with what the general public is voting.
Louder.
Is that better? I'm sorry.
Open up your mouth.
Okay, I'll do my best. We want to be sure that we understand all the regulations associated with this new proposed law. We don't have that information, so we're requesting the moratorium, which the Attorney General has approved for other towns, so we know it will be an accepted moratorium. The issue is that if we then go and approve an area that is to be zoned for that, we are in contradiction with Article 13. So we have been advised not to do that. We would have to defend that. How can we claim a moratorium when we have already decided where we want to put it? And so all we're saying is we want the moratorium. We will defer the logic of having where we will locate this until the following town meeting, because the moratorium is in place, it can't happen anyway, and we're not creating that contradiction between the two bylaws. And Mr. Cleese was not aware of that when we had that meeting tonight.
Thank you. Now, to the planning board. On Article 13.
Okay, so this has been a bit of a, first of all, Jeff Palumbo, Chairman of the Planning Board. This has been a bit of a moving target, waiting to hear about the actions and determinations of the Attorney General. And this information is very new, and in fact, when the Planning Board held its public hearing for this particular article, that information, of course, was not known. Having said that, the Planning Board did unanimously support this particular article. However, that information was not known, so there is some speculation on my part for purposes of full disclosure, but I believe the Planning Board would nevertheless support this article.
Thank you. Now, relative to Article 13, do people with questions or comments on Article 13? See Mr. Khalid is standing in the back, thinking, am I going to walk to the microphone? Aren't I going to walk to the microphone? I'm going to walk to the microphone.
Madam Moderator, thank you. In light of Mr. Lehan's information, it's my opinion that we approve Article 10 tonight, which is the location. I'd like to get that in place. I think that's the best place for us as a town to locate the medical marijuana center. And the main reason is it's part of a comprehensive, Article 10 is a four-part article, and if we'd have to pull that out. It may get complicated trying to pull that one piece out of Article 10. I'd rather leave it in there. It's part of Article 10.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are talking about Article 13.
I know it. I know we're talking about Article 13. I'd rather see Article 13 not approved and Article 10 approved.
Okay. I've got lots of hands in the air. I'm going to go with the town council.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Can everyone hear me?
Maybe a little louder. I can't hear you.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone where we are. The reason why a motion was to take Article 13 out of order, in other words, before Article 10, was in order to give this body an opportunity to determine that it wants to have a moratorium, in order to have the following year to review the regulations that are going to come down from the Department of Public Health and consider where would be an appropriate location, come back to another town meeting, and then make that determination. If the meeting had voted Article 10 first and had located a district in which medical marijuana dispensaries could be, there would have been a lack of support, or at least less support, for taking action under this article that's before you to have a moratorium. The basis for a moratorium is to study. There has been an opinion issued by the Attorney General's office on a moratorium. Didn't happen to be for medical marijuana, but the town meeting had voted a location, then they voted a moratorium. And the Attorney General said, while she would not strike down the moratorium, She cautioned that if it were to be challenged, it would be a burden upon the town to support why it needed to study something that it had already acted upon. That's the reason why we're taking up the moratorium first, so you have the opportunity to decide you want a moratorium, you want more time to consider. Next, we'll go back to Article 10. If you voted for a moratorium, it does not make sense under that article to create a district at this time. I hope that makes it a little bit clearer.
Based on what town council has said, and by way of clarification, are there any questions or comments relative to Article 13, the moratorium? Seeing no one at a microphone, seeing someone at a microphone, let's hear what you have to say.
Jim Geefy, 34 Robin Road. I just want to reflect back on the analogy that was brought up about the red light district. When our selectmen, we also had a similar situation where we had to make a decision on what we were going to do in this case. We waited for the AG to give us clarification so that when we made the decision, town council were told us we would not be challenged by the various enterprises that would want to place themselves in different parts of the town. So we got the support. We knew when we made the decision, we would not have to be in court battles regarding this. So I think town council is using that previous experience that they're aware of and advising us well in this case.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question or comment? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approval of Article 13, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. So 2/3 required as an audible. I believe that the ayes have it. Article 10.
Is this discussion a good time? Madam Moderator, I move to approve Article 10 as modified, not as printed in one. The modifications are in the screen, and I believe we have handouts for people. Jack, yes? Handouts?
Madam Moderator, I handouts. I also have a red line. I've made the font in red on the screen for everything that we're suggesting be deleted. Let me gather some folks with hands up.
Okay, so just in the spirit of saving time, as those are being distributed, as it was discussed before, based upon new information from town council, the advisory board was provided this revised draft, which we voted upon prior to this meeting unanimously. Again, the spirit of this article is trying to provide some protection against enterprising, kind of proactive souls who may try to insert a business that involves this provision prior to us being fully prepared. The idea here is to strip out of this any reference to medical marijuana because the prior approval of Article 13 provides a complete moratorium, which is the protection that we're looking for. Again, in theory, as has been said before, the moratorium.
Who is going to speak for the 10 minutes on Article 10 from the organizational meeting? Are one of these two gentlemen, are they doing a rock, paper, scissors? And the loser gets to speak? Mr. Nicodemus, called paper.
What I would like to do initially in explaining this article, since there isn't a graphic on the screen, but there is one in the town warrant, is to explain that the C1 district is a district that is represented by the routes 1A and 115, and a section of those roads, 300 feet on each side, is called on-highway. There is 4 quadrants that are called off-highway. That's what is described in here, and what we are trying to do is to permit 2 specific uses in the off-highway districts, one being the C1B district, which happens to be known as Shire Industrial Park, on the Rentham Town line, and then there is the C1D district, which is located off of Valley Street and Pine Street, which is Route 115, which would allow a residential multifamily development program only in that locational area, which is off-highway. All of the on-highway districts are restricted to commercial, full commercial development, and there's no changes to them. This Article 10 is dealing with the ability to allow in the C1B district auto freight storage. And auto freight storage is a development that has a home in Walpole, is looking to develop in Norfolk, and it will have a 10 to 15,000 square foot building and a parking lot for over 100 cars, which is not allowed through one already tried and turned down for variance 2 years ago. In the Shire Industrial Park, we feel that is an adequate location for that use to occur without creating any problems. And in the same category, allowing residential uses in the C1D district, which is off of Valley Street and Pine Street, which is Route 115, already has multifamily housing in it, and we feel that that is not an inappropriate allowance for that location only. And that is the basis of this request.
Planning board.
Jeff Palumbo, Chairman of the Planning Board. I must say I haven't run into this situation before where the Planning Board had vetted an article and we have a substitute motion, which my belief is that the Planning Board would support the substitute motion given the new information that's been shared and the legal issues associated with having a moratorium and also having the overlay district. But once again, for purposes of full disclosure, the Planning Board voted on the article in the warrant, and that particular article received unanimous support from the Planning Board.
Thank you. Now, folks, please come on to the microphone to talk about Article 10.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to submit a substitute motion. Need a second.
All right.
Is it permissible to ask for one?
I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's called politics. I just want to interrupt you for 1 second and indicate that procedurally what's happened is we are no longer currently considering what's on the board. We are now going to listen to Mr. Archer. Boucher discuss his substitute motion.
Basically, my substitute motion is the original motion with a whole bunch of stuff crossed out. What you see up there, I don't have an overhead, but if you look at what's there, down to line 12 where it says intersection period. Is everybody with me? 12 lines down. The C1D shall right there. Everything down to there is included in this substitute motion. What's not there is within the C1 off-highway district, the reference to an adult business overlay district and a medical marijuana treatment center. So that's excluded. Further, from what's in your warrant, and further, a new section D. That's part of the original warrant. No, that's fine. Let's go to the next. Yeah. Oh, and further. Oh, okay. I was looking at that. Okay, and further to insert new section D, et cetera, That's all crossed out. It's not included in the motion. And where it says residential dwellings is crossed out. And further to delete, we don't need, and further to delete, that's crossed out. Yes, we don't need further to amend. That's crossed out. The adult freight storage is crossed out. And the medical marijuana treatment center is crossed out. Doesn't leave much.
Can I interrupt just for 1 second? Because you were doing a nice job of running through it, but it may have caused people to get lost in the shuffle. Am I correct to understand that you are moving to strike, essentially, from within the C-1 C off-highway district all the way to the end, except for the language, or take any other action relative thereto?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. That's exactly
Right?
that's what I want to do now.
People who wanted it quickly,
Yep.
small as the group is.
Originally, the medical marijuana thing was in there, but we've taken it out and we've declared the moratorium, so.
So could you please state your reasons for wanting to modify?
Yes. My reasons for wanting to modify are with respect to the C1D district that has housing, agreed there may be 3 houses there, 3 residential units there, but that's commercial development. We've spent a lot of time at town meeting bemoaning the fact that we don't have a lot of commercial development. We don't have a lot of areas zoned for commercial. And I would not like to take some of that commercial land out and make it residential. In terms of the freight storage facility, I didn't know anything about it until Mr. Nicodemus made his presentation. I'm still concerned about locating it in that district. I would like to be able, I don't know if it's the best thing for that district. It's going to take a portion of that, a substantial portion of that district. And I don't know what that would do in terms of other businesses that might want to locate in that particular zone or in that particular off-road zone. And therefore, I'd like basically to strike that now and have a greater chance to think about what's going in there as opposed to giving up that right now. I think Mr. Connors.
All right, so that everyone understands what the heck was going on over here. What happens often is that there are motions put before the moderator, and it is his or her duty to decide if the motion to amend is within or without the scope. What does that mean? That means that if there are people who attend the different meetings that occur on the way up to town meeting, if there are people who read the warrant and they look at it and they say, oh, I see what they're doing, nothing here concerns me, I'm not going to go to town meeting. We cannot then change something on the floor that is going to be outside the scope of that original motion. In this instance, I am ruling that this motion is outside the scope of the original motion. My rule is this.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, when I turn it over to, here's the other rule. When I turn it over to town council and they agree with me, it then becomes town council's decision, no longer mine. Town council agrees with me. You can ask a question of town council, not of me.
May I ask a question?
Of town council.
Of town council. I have been to numerous town meetings, and for something to be ruled out of the scope of the article meant you attempted to add something into the article. I'm trying to take something out of the article, and therefore I disagree that it's out of the scope of the article.
I think it's fair to answer his question to explain why it's outside the scope of the article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Zoning can be tricky. Sometimes you can eliminate something and open up a whole new area. by eliminating the adult entertainment zone, you would open up the entire town to adult entertainment, and hence you would be opening up and enlarging the article over what was ever anticipated by the person reading it at home.
So, inasmuch as the changes that were suggested would open up the entire town for consideration as opposed to one section, that's larger than the folks at home would be reading the article. Article 10 still remains Article 10. So, if you're opposed to Article 10, feel free to speak against Article 10. Everybody feels free to line up at the microphones. Article 10 is currently on the table.
Madam Moderator, point of order. We are not voting on Article 10, we're voting on the substitute Article 10.
No, we're not. I've ruled the substitute article. Oh, there's a substitute article. Right, the original substitute. That's correct.
All right.
My bad. The original substitute article that's up on the board and was just handed out. So what's the question or comment or motion?
Excuse me. Richard Connors, 30 Everett Street. By what you just said, is it possible to substitute a portion of Article 10, specifically 7A, 7A, 2E?
What's your motion?
I want to delete it, and I've got it.
You want to delete special permit uses by zoning board of appeals and off-highway C-1B?
That's correct.
Just that auto, from where to where? Do you need the pointer?
No. Down it says residential dwelling, 5,000 square feet.
All right. So the question is that outside or within the scope? And I'll turn that over to town council as well. Because I'll admit, what I know about bylaws, zoning.
Maybe it would make it easier if it's indefinitely postponed.
I would, but I've been waiting for someone to move to definitely postpone this for a while, but whatever. People are just doing their thing.
Madam Moderator, thank you for your patience. This is why it's not often advisable to try and amend a zoning bylaw from the floor. The language which is being proposed to be deleted is already in the bylaw. This isn't new language. So there's a proposal to delete something that's part of the bylaw, and the public hasn't been informed that that was going to be proposed. That places it outside the scope of the article.
That will be your next motion, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moderator, may I ask a question?
Sure.
If it's indefinitely postponed as opposed to being deleted?
Do you mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject. Are you asking that the entire article can be
No,
indefinitely
it's still
postponed? I don't
not.
think you can postpone portions of an article. It's all or nothing.
All or nothing for the whole?
It's all or nothing. You don't want to indefinitely postpone the whole shooting match?
No, I'm not against other portions.
Giving you an option. Just throwing it out there.
Now, may I speak with my reason why I did not go for this article?
Of course. It's your second time at the, well, it's still your first time at the mic, right?
Okay.
You haven't left.
I hope it's not the last. What we have is from the time that, from the time that I had down here, which was a long time ago, we've been working with the town boards, the town meetings, and the residents of the Pondville area, which is the area that I live in, to protect and develop the commercial area that we're talking about today. Specifically, my problem is a portion. Is there a bill? Specifically, my problem, of course, is that.
Is that on? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
good.
Would you like me to turn it?
No, we'd like you to come in.
The area, if you have that map that you discussed.
You got to talk into the mic. You got to talk into the mic.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
I've got to go to school for this.
You got to point it towards your mouth.
Oh.
There you go.
As Jack stated, there's a $9 million medical building that's going to be put up, and it's going through the approval cycle. And that will be on the corner of 115 and 1A. That's another $9 million to add to our town roads. In that area, there are two commercial buildings on Hill Street. There's two business areas on Valley Street. There's two buildings on Hill Street, commercial. There's two businesses on Valley Street. There's five businesses once the medical building is approved and the car wash. Here's some facts on the money. Currently assessed for that property that I discussed is $17 million. Not bad. And when we put in a $9 million medical facility, it'll boost it up to approximately $26 million. I believe that part of this article takes away some of the commercial land that we have striven to put together so that we could bring some value to the town. As my wife said many years ago, we treat that area as the albatross around our neck, when in reality, it's our pot of gold. These buildings will not have school children, and they will use minimum services for the town. So for us to give away any portion of the commercial zone, in my opinion, is not the way to go. So I would appreciate it if you would consider voting down this article. Thank you very much.
That's all right. My dad spoke earlier and then voted against me, so go figure. And we'll go to that mic, and then the question will go back.
Just going to hope I can reach this. In order to stick to my 2 minutes, I will stick to my notes.
You actually have 5 minutes. Ooh. And just introduce yourself for the audience. And then you have another 3 after that.
No.
It might be easier, yeah, just to take it off.
My name is Elizabeth Whitney, Betsy Whitney, and I live at 26 Valley Street in Pondville. I live in the middle of the C1 district, a historic district called Pondville that was established formally in approximately 1730. And it was, of course, residential when it started. And it was residential for many, many years. It was a farming community. Farms were big. There were lots of land. Before I moved to Norfolk, it was rezoned to commercial. When my husband and I moved to Norfolk, it was commercial. I didn't particularly have much of an opinion. I am very much, and I think anybody who knows me knows that I have been watching commercial development since 2008. I've watched it very closely. I care. I live on Valley Street. I'm the only resident on Valley Street. I have land to the left of me. I have land across the street from me that is commercially zoned. It's beautiful land, and there it sits. It's reached its potential for me, but it has not reached its potential for the tax base. I took a little trip around Pondville yesterday and the day before. I wanted to acquaint myself with on the highway commercial areas. A lot of it was vacant, a lot of for sale signs, a lot of space available signs. Drove down Pond Street. I wrote a book, and chapter 10 is about Pondville Hospital that lies vacant. There's a lot of commercial property in Norfolk that is all around me, that is already commercial. The property on Valley Street is going to go. I am happy to support Article 10 and give my neighborhood, and again, my husband and I and daughter are the only folks living on Valley Street, and I walk those streets all the time. Do not call me a streetwalker, I'm picking up trash. I would love to give Pondville, and again, I live within spitting distance of 7 historical sites. Some are no more. Some have a little bit left of them. And I lived in one of the houses that was built in the middle 1700s by Jacob Pond. Behind me lived Ephraim Pond. In the neighborhood lived General Preston Pond, hence Pondville. I welcome the opportunity to see a residence constructed. My house was built as a one-family. In those days, one-families were the way to go. Now, multi-families or multi-units are the way to go. My house was made by Charlie Sharon into a 2-family home. I already live in a multi-family home. I've never heard anybody complain about it. I did a little research, and I'm not great on the computer, but I do have friends in real estate, and I said, does multi-unit mean multi-kids? And the consistent answer really was, no, it doesn't. Families with multi-kids really want single-family homes. Single-family homes would not be permitted. On my website, I came up very quickly with 2 pieces of information that worked for me. Quote, single-family rentals, see households. Single-family rentals, see households with children as their largest household type, compared to investment-grade, multi-family properties in which singles dominate. And my second piece, thank you. Young professionals still trying to establish careers often choose multi-units form of housing as a convenient way to move in and out of an area as they search for better opportunities. And older couples whose children have moved out and who no longer need the space of a large home find multi-unit or multi-family housing an attractive option. I really do believe that multi-unit does not necessarily mean multi-children in the schools. It means something quite different. And I do remind you, we are not taking commercial out of the equation. It's staying a commercial area by special permit. If folks were against a project that was proposed, do what I do. Go to the meetings, do your homework, and bring your points to the attention of the committee. Nobody's leaving anybody out. But commercial property sitting there without a building, as much as I would love to look at the trees for the rest of my life, that's not plausible. So I do feel that we need to remember that it's actually adding more commercial possibilities. So I think you have figured out by now that I am in favor of passing Article 10. And thank you. I can't believe I stuck it.
No, actually, he was here first.
Ken Milne, 12 Brookside Lane. Mr. Moderator, I have a question about something the council said earlier. I'll address it to you, perhaps you can ask me to answer.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. I believe I heard, perhaps I heard wrong, that she ruled that a motion to exclude J7A2E from the warrant as written is not acceptable. That it would change the nature of the warrant and therefore we couldn't do it. I'd really like to have that explained because, and I think I also heard her say that the reason was it was already in the existing bylaws. But the way this is written, it's clearly not in the existing bylaws. It says, and further to insert new sections, J7A2E, not to amend section J7A2E. So please clarify that. And perhaps we didn't decide that we couldn't strip just that section out. That's what I thought I heard.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. On that limited change, we had a lot of changes going on, and I do stand corrected. On the portion that talks about inserting something new, that does not pose the same problem as an earlier substitute motion that sought to delete sections of the bylaw that already exist. There is a problem with zoning in that sometimes by eliminating part of it, you can have unintended consequences and have things come about that people sitting at home could not have anticipated. This is a tricky one, but I do stand corrected on that J7A2D. That would be a new proposal that's coming in, and what's being suggested is not to include that. Whether it's hard to be here and determine in a short time frame whether that would have repercussions upon the other new sections of the article that are unintended. And I really would caution the meeting about that, but I do stand corrected on the fact that that particular section would be new.
So, can I just get a point of clarification? Are you now saying that Mr. Connor's motion is not outside the scope?
Well, it depends on the motion. At this point,
The
certainly...
motion was to delete from J7A2D down to where it said residential dwelling, correct? Right? I'm going to call Mr. Connor back up to the... Sir, if you could please illuminate for us one more time what section you propose is deleting, and we'll craft a motion around that. But from what you see up here, and if town council could pay attention to what he's doing, I'm going to defer to her because we've all established how I feel about zoning. I'll even be your Vanna White. Where do you want to have it deleted? And now I'm going up here.
Pick the letter J.
Right there.
No, not that one.
Not that one, this one.
That one.
Okay.
J.7A, point 2, point E, special permit uses by the planning board in off-highway C1D, down to 5,000 square feet of land.
So this whole section, correct?
Yes. And did a great job.
Should I turn to the numbers?
You have a few comments.
So my question then to the,
Before you do that,
yes.
the motion can be put to delete. The motion can be put to indefinitely postpone. That makes a difference in her decision.
All right, so now the question to town council is that J7A2E through to the end, 5,000 square feet of land. Would the application of that section be outside the scope?
Through you, Madam Moderator, to the extent I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you want to delete new sections that are being proposed only the new sections. I think that's arguably within the scope of the article.
It's within the
Just that
scope.
limited one.
That's exciting. We've got a lot of energy here at 10:35 at night. So now is there a motion to amend the supplemental article to remove the highlighted portion? Is there? Yes, there is. And the second? All right, we got a second. So now we have, now we're talking. So now the new, don't go anywhere, the new thing we're contemplating, have a seat, I'm not ready for you. The new thing, you're not having a seat though, are you? The new thing we're contemplating right now is the article as it was handed out, less the yellow. And we're just determining whether or not we're going to entertain this new motion, not whether we're going to allow the new motion.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
If you're taking out that part, you should also take out the reference to J782E on the top line.
Oh, well played, Mr. McFeely, well played. What do you think about that? And I think that town council is correct. I think that there is some concern whenever we start to wordsmith zoning bylaws from the floor, because now it's 10:35 and we're trying to decide what else we're going to remove. Are you okay just moving what you wanted to remove?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So what's currently before the body is whether or not we should, not whether we should allow this, but whether we should consider this instead of this. Just that issue. Does anybody, and I understand that you think there should be another piece removed, but that's not the current motion. Maybe this fails and you want to broaden our horizons, whatever. We're coming back tomorrow night. So, we'll all be here tomorrow night. I'm looking at everybody. All of those in favor. Oh, you've been standing patiently waiting. So now we're here to have discussion about whether or not we should change the article. Just whether or not we should consider this, not whether we should allow it. Should we consider this instead of the supplemental that was handed out? Does anyone have any questions or commentary? That's out of microphone. Mr. Sneed.
I have a question. If this change is made, it appears to me that the zone C1D is then unzoned. It's been created. It's been created, but it doesn't have a designation unless it's.
So Mr. Sneed's concern is that the abrogation of the yellow section creates a dead zone.
I guess it's just ordinary business.
But we don't have, it's not community involvement. Somebody want to answer his question? Mr. Connors, this is your motion. Oh, Mr. Nicodemus. Voice of reason.
He's older than I
I heard that.
am. The C1D district is already in the first part of the article subdividing 4 off-highway districts by name. So that's already there no matter what you do with this.
Thank you. What's the next question or comment relative to whether or not we should consider Mr. Connors' motion to amend?
Could I just ask to have one clarification from town council that has to do with the whole bottom?
Oh, sure.
Stephen McLean, 45 King Street. I know the town council said that if we remove that bottom section, that it would delete the district for the adult business overlay district. But that was passed about 5 years ago. So if we deleted that, it wouldn't have any impact on the law that already exists. Am I correct?
Madam Moderator.
Okay, well, just the person who's at the microphone is going to answer, so that's the town council. Let's hear it.
It would indeed have an effect. It would eliminate the adult entertainment zone and allow adult entertainment to be anywhere in town. Parties who wanted to have an adult entertainment business would be able to set up that business
solve our
anywhere
revenue
in
problem.
town. The reason for that is that adult entertainment is considered expressive conduct. It's protected by the First Amendment. You have to allow it somewhere. If you don't have a district in which it can be located anywhere.
Right, but my question has to do with, if you just remove the language from this town meeting, does it affect the existing appendix that already places the district in effect?
Yes, it would.
At the center microphone.
Arthur Franzak, 14 Main Street. This goes back to Mr. Sneed's question. So the last answer was, if we make this change, the area designated C1D will still exist. The earlier part of the article actually specifies it. So my question is, okay, it's designating it for what? If we eliminate that provision, is there anything specified to happen in C1D, or is it just empty?
Mr. Nicodemus, where are you? Did you leave? Oh, there you are.
The article that's being suggested for revision that I see there is only involving a use that is allowed in the C1D district. It's not eliminating the C1D district. And the same is true with the description of where adult business is now. It's allowed and it's listed in Article 10 already as being part of the C1D district. So it's there in this article, even if you delete dwelling out of the use allowed in another district.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh.
Madam Moderator, will we have an opportunity to debate why taking this out makes no sense?
Now would be a great time.
Okay, good. That's why I asked.
I invite that.
Thank you. I'm the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals and also a member of the Zoning Bylaws Study Committee. We've spent 4 months crafting these bylaws. We've had public meetings. The people proposing these changes, as far as I know, never attended any of our public sessions or open meetings. We've had lengthy discussions with abutters, and specifically removing the
Practice in the bylaws, that's what is going to happen. There's no protection there. Why do we want to give up any commercial land at all? The area at 1A and 115 is just coming to fruition terrifically. And I don't really want to see us give up any residential land, certainly to the impact that it may have on our schools, the big budget we have for schools. I can't be assured that you put up a multi-family dwelling and you're not going to have more services, if not the schools, the police, the fire, or whatever. Let's keep it commercial, where you have money come in and very little go out. Thank you.
All right, I'll hold for the applause. Andrea, are you approaching a microphone?
Yeah, I don't know which microphone.
It doesn't matter at this point. It's microphone mayhem at this point.
Good, good. Andrea Langhauser, 49 Noon Hill Avenue, speaking as a resident. I agree with everything Nancy Connors just said. I think that we have very limited commercial area in town. We have very little area that's zoned for business. This is an area that has been growing very well commercially, and I don't think we need to open it up to multifamily residences. So I agree with eliminating what's in yellow.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, Walter Byron, 80 Fruit Street, and a member of the Zoning Bylaws Study Committee. I'd like to echo what Mr. Nicodemus and Mr. Khaleesi have said, that we have spent a lot of time looking at this. We are just adding this use. We are not detracting or subtracting any other allowed commercial use from this district. To the best of our knowledge, we have one developer who would like to put in one building, as Mr. Khaleesi described it. We are not turning this quadrant of the C1 district into a residential area. There will be further commercial development within this quadrant of the C1 district. So I, as Mr. Khaleesi and Mr. Nicodemus have suggested, suggest that we disregard this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question or comment relative to simply whether or not we should consider the supplemental submission? Seeing nobody, currently the motion before the floor, majority is required, is whether or not we're going to substitute what was handed out with the motion to remove the highlighted area. That's the limited question. And somebody's going to get up anyway.
Jeff Berkner, 319. Are we also eliminating the N, J7A2E at the top? It wasn't clear to me that that was included.
Well, it would have to be.
I just want to make sure that it is.
It's yellowed.
Because originally it was just the part in the middle.
It would have to be, because otherwise then people would be like, where the heck is that J7A2E I've been looking for? So I know that would be me. All right. Just on whether we're going to consider the new motion versus the old motion, not whether we're going to approve the new motion, just on whether we're going to consider the new motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I would say that the noes carry. The original motion stands. The original supplemental motion stands. All right, now we're to the Article 10, as in the handout. Do we have anybody who'd like to come down and comment as to Article 10 in the handout?
Hi, Sue Jacobson, 9 Village Green. I just wanted to make sure that while we were doing all of this wordsmithing of amendments, that we didn't lose sight that we have a business that wants to come to Norfolk, and we spend many hours trying to get businesses to come to Norfolk. So I just didn't want that lost in all of the talk that went on prior to the article.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question or comment relative to Article 10 as supplemented by the Planning Board?
Jim D. 34 Robin Road. I have questions regarding the oil freight storage. I'm trying to get an idea on what are some of the verbiage and what the definitions are, both a multiple question. In talking about the oil freight storage, it talks about the cars up to 150 stored and coming in and out by trailer, truck trailer. And it says in operating conditions, so I'm not sure what that means. And then it says that they can be stored for up to 9 months. And then in that process, the vehicle that's on site can be allowed to be worked on to be serviced, to repair, or I imagine whatever needs to be done in that area. My concern in knowing that area as being a former chair of the Conservation Commission and knowing the wetlands in the area and having to deal previously, and I know this is not, but with one of our junkyards that we had in town, problems of overseeing and watching them, and the building inspector getting in there and seeing, making sure that they were not giving us a problem with our wetlands. I'm concerned on what is actually going to occur with those 150 cars as they rotate on through there, as the services are provided there. And do we have sufficient capabilities to monitor this and stop it appropriately? We did not have that, and we had to deal with some of the other issues in town with the junkyard that we had in town to stop that. It took us years. So my concern is with that. And then the second point has to do with roads. We don't have much in the road budget, and you're now adding this tractor trailer truck coming in and out. And if you look at some of the major areas where tractor trailers are, like on Route 1 and stoplights, and you go along the roads, and you go right by the stoplights, and you see that the asphalt is moved and shaken and repositioned, and you get this bumpy roller coaster. That's from the tractor trailer trucks stopping and hitting their brakes and moving and shifting the asphalt. So the roads around town are going to take a beating from this type of service that's going on, in my opinion. So those are, one is a comment, and two is asking for some more definition. Thank you.
Mr. Nicodemus looked like he was ready to jump in with an answer.
My answer really is in defining what an auto freight storage can do, which we have researched with 6 different consultants to get to where we're at. And the issue of creating a area in which there is operating vehicles. It means that the vehicles themselves can run in and out as operating vehicles, not as junk and not as trash and not as demolished vehicles. They are operating vehicles. They may be delivered on a flatbed truck, that is true, and they may have to have some service because it's a 9-month storage, but it's not something that is a junkyard, and they're not bringing damaged vehicles in according to the definitions as we've listed them.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments relative to the Article 10 as passed out? Seeing no one, all of those in favor of approval of Article 10, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. It is a 2/3 required. I do believe the 2/3 has it. At this junction, pursuant...
7 people stand up.
Repeat the question.
Well, now there's someone trying to recreate some of the movies from the 80s and getting people to stand up. Usually you come down to the mic, though, but that's fine. You know what? No worries. It's 11 o'clock at night. I can't think of anything any of us would rather do than confirm the 2/3 majority. So, do I still have my vote counters? Yay, you didn't leave. All right, whatever way we did before. All right. All of those in favor, get your cards out. Get them up, get them high. They're going to be counted. Someone other than me will do the math.
Yes.
Oh, you gotta come on the stage.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed these. 31. 30.
30. Did you count the stage?
Yes.
And these folks?
Yes.
All right. All right. All of those, now your hands go down. Now, all of those opposed, hands high in the air. Let's get them up there so he can count them. Or they can count them, I apologize. Folks, this isn't supposed to be fun. I don't want to hear any laughter.
I'm making jokes.
Don't make a joke. How many?
14. 2.
So there are 61 ayes and 16 nays. And there's a calculator next to me. So the 2/3 majority does have it. Thank you very much. Now, what I was going to say. There's a bylaw that doesn't allow us to entertain any motions past 11. Yes, sir.
I move to adjourn this meeting till 7 p.m. tomorrow night, May 8th, at the KP Middle School.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Please turn, all those opposed? Doesn't matter, majority carries. Please turn your green cards at the end of tonight.
Keep them?
No, turn them in.
They're going to be different color tomorrow night.
No sneak and double vote.